Well, a good Monday afternoon to you, Central Georgia. We have our first severe thunderstorm warning of the afternoon and probably not the last. So we are continuing to get a lot of these warnings issued as this line of storms moves into a more suitable environment. A lot more instability, a lot of moisture, a lot of those severe weather ingredients that you do need in order to sprout some severe thunderstorms. So let's go through the first and most immediate one this morning that did get issued and starts to creep into our viewing area. This severe thunderstorm warning stretching from Manchester all the way over into Thomaston, encompassing areas like Harris County, Meriwether County, Pike, and then Upson County. This warning will go for another 40 minutes as we do see a lot of lightning. And then if I take away the lightning right here, you'll be able to see a lot of red, so indicating some heavy rainfall in this patch right here. And actually what they have noted is even a little bit of a hail signature. If you've been tuning in all morning long, we're talking about hail being one of the lower threats. We don't have a lot of confidence in seeing hail whatsoever, and it's very minuscule, very even hard to see on this map. This brown shaded area just to the south of Manchester, it's going to indicate some hail that I imagine is probably about 2/10, 3/10 of an inch in diameter. Okay, 4/10, so it went 1/10 above what I was thinking right there. That's still about dime to penny sized hail. So the hail risk, obviously not really the main impact with this. They will continue to be the straight line winds associated with this line of storms moving through. So the heaviest of the bunch moving through Manchester right now and will eventually make its way into western Upson County. Many areas in west and northwestern Upson County have been issued in that severe thunderstorm warning. Something new that we did just get issued, this very large severe thunderstorm warning crossing the Chattahoochee River from Alabama right now. This is going to be for Chattahoochee, Marion, Muskogee, Stewart counties, just to name a few. But only noting this one because what would be next if they do decide to continue this severe thunderstorm warning? Taylor County, Macon County, getting into Crawford County and Peach County. Our far western corridor is where we're starting to see activity flare up in the form of these severe thunderstorm warnings. So we take it back a little bit. This was the initial severe thunderstorm warning associated with the one that now encompasses Upson County over towards the east. This is for Harris, Meriwether, Muskogee, closer to the Columbus area around Hamilton. And just because the bulk of it and the heaviest rain, the gustiest winds have moved out of that area, still take a look at how much lightning and how much heavy rainfall is embedded within that polygon right there. So while the thunderstorm may not necessarily be severe anymore, there's still a good amount of heavy rain to follow that initial line of the heaviest impacts as they do trek into central Georgia now. Let's take it up to the northwest because this has been quite an active area over the last couple, maybe about 30 minutes to an hour. I wouldn't necessarily say the last hour. Plenty of severe thunderstorm warnings, which are really hard to see right now with all the yellows on the radar. We take away that and we'll take away the lightning, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. So 3 severe thunderstorm warnings up near the Peachtree City, McDonough area. Once again, not the central Georgia area, but want to note this because you see this red box right here. That's going to be a tornado warning that they have issued, and they have extended outwards just to the west of Peachtree City, actually passing to the north of the radar at the National Weather Service up in Peachtree City. So we were talking about the potential for those spin up and brief tornadoes. There has been a tornado warned storm up to the north, not necessarily indicating that it has touched down on the ground. We haven't got confirmation of that. However, it is a brief spin up. We have been monitoring rotation, and we will continue to monitor rotation as this line of storms does push through. So let's bring back the radar and bring back the lightning. It does make for quite a messy picture, so I'm probably going to fluctuate with flashing some of these off and turning them back on so you guys can get a good picture of what's going on. The lightning is the main story right now, I would say. It is really crowding this radar image. When you get clusters of lightning kind of clumping up together, it's going to indicate your heavier rainfall, maybe even some hail embedded within that. And that's where you typically find some of your stronger or your severe thunderstorms. And we really didn't see this line have much activity throughout the course of this morning. We take a big picture view. This line is spanning all the way from the northern edge of the state. Northwestern counties are actually out of a severe thunderstorm watch and really any severe weather potential for the rest of the day. However, we continue to see all of these severe thunderstorm warnings popping up ahead of the line as it does maybe get close to the northern half of central Georgia, but plenty of activity going on down here. And now that I see it at the bottom of the screen, let's go over down to Dothan, because the general direction of these storms is going to be a little bit towards the northeast. So everything you see down here, more than likely going to encompass the southern half of central Georgia, just due to the direction of them. We do have a tornado warned storm just to the northwest of Dothan down in southeast Alabama. And obviously this probably isn't going to hold together by the time it reaches central Georgia, or maybe even passing just to the south of Chris County, Wilcox, and counties over towards the east that you do see in our southern corridor. But that's something we're going to continue to keep an eye out for. We were talking about all those potential severe weather impacts all morning long, and the gusty winds still remain the main concern, up to 60, maybe 70 miles an hour at times, those occasional gusts. However, the potential for a brief spin-up tornado and hail are low, but they are still there, and we have seen that come to fruition a little bit so far with this line of storms. So a very widespread system. We are not the only ones in a risk throughout today. This all comes in light of this, the day one outlook outlining all of central Georgia in a level 3 out of 5 risk, that enhanced risk. Now, we did see this upgraded from a level 2. Not really sure necessarily what was the driver of that per se, but obviously severe thunderstorms, tornado warnings, that can come to fruition even if you're in a level 1 risk. So we do have a level 3, which means there's more confidence in most of us seeing that severe weather potential. And obviously this orange shaded area, it was really widespread this morning. It looks like they have trimmed it back with the first update throughout today, now just encompassing many areas in the state of Georgia, eastern Alabama. And if we zoom it back out, you can see this goes up into South Carolina, North Carolina. All these states to our north and our northeast are still yet to see any of these severe weather impacts. So I did catch a glimpse of what I saw at the last minute. It looked like another severe thunderstorm warning. No, this is still the same one up here. When you have so many of these, they kind of get carried away and they start to fluctuate, kind of merge together a little bit, if you will. So our western counties right now, this is just shy of 1 p.m. in the afternoon. We were talking about it this morning. The 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. window was kind of when our weather impact alert was going to be. Wanted you to go ahead and make preparations to just be indoors somewhere by the time the noon hour rolled around. And we have seen this trend a little bit ahead of what models have been thinking as it does push into counties like Taylor County, Upson County. Not to take away from the fact that you are seeing some scattered sprinkles, maybe a scattered heavy shower ahead of this main line of precipitation that is moving through. North Bibb starting to see some rain here. Southern Monroe County, scattered sprinkles and scattered steady showers over in Crawford County, Houston County, and even taking it way down to counties like Pulaski, Dodge County, but not seeing the main event so far is where it does stand. So meteorologist Ansley Parker is here with me. We will be tag teaming the coverage all afternoon into the evening long. Ansley, it looks like you have one of these warnings pulled up. Give us a little more on that.
Yeah, so earlier you mentioned this. We had a tornado warning over towards Peachtree City. I do want to mention the red box that you're still seeing on your screen, so the tornado warning that is for Peachtree City has expired. We're talking with the National Weather Service right now about getting an update to our graphics. We can't seem to quite get the box down. So there is no active tornado warnings here in the state at the moment, but I just wanted you to see that. What I'm doing right now is kind of clicking around the different sky cams that we have in the area, kind of near McDonough, near Forest Park, to see if I could see any remaining signs of rotation or if there was anything that looked particularly strong. And the good news is, as I'm clicking around, and I'll just go ahead and play one out for you. As I'm clicking around, I'm really not seeing much in that area, which is why they were able to let the warning go. So this sky cam that you're seeing now is from roughly the Fayetteville area, which would be kind of close to where that line is beginning to move over now. So it's kind of a horizon shot. You're seeing the tops of the tree line there. You're seeing a lot of the dark clouds and the rain's beginning to take over. I think one of the biggest things that we're watching with this, like Alex mentioned, is the gusty winds. So winds are pretty much blowing that rain around, making the visibility very low, so making it hard to see out there. But I was just trying to see if we could kind of get a picture as this line rolls over. Maybe we just got an update, that camera refreshed or something like that. So now it looks a little bit calmer, but you can kind of see where that line is beginning to roll over. Taking it back to the radar, we just got an update from the Storm Prediction Center that I was looking at, and I'm trying to make sure it doesn't say anything that we need to be mentioning. Okay, yeah, so the Storm Prediction Center is saying generally what we're already paying attention to, which is to pay special attention to the fact that these wind gusts can get up pretty strong, which we know, obviously, because that's why there's severe thunderstorm warnings issued ahead of this line. When there are those kinds of warnings, you're seeing wind speeds in excess of 65 miles per hour. So that still seems to be the biggest thing that we're watching at the moment. Like you heard Alex say a few times, a lot of these storms do have areas of embedded hail as well, so that would be a potential hazard. I think generally, just as this line comes through the afternoon here, it's best to try and be off the road. So if you can be off the roads, if you're in our western counties for about the next hour or so, then you'll probably be in the all clear. The good news is, similar to many lines that we have roll through our area, after the initial brunt of this thing comes through, what you see behind it is really just some rain and maybe a couple of lightning strikes. The real chance for severe weather is going to be right along the leading edge of this front, and then you should be in the all clear in terms of severe weather. But you can see behind this line, there is still some, let me get my clicker out. There is still a little bit of rainfall and a couple of lightning strikes as well. That's very reminiscent of what we've seen for the past couple of lines. You'll just hear some rumblers, you'll have some steady rain, but really the severe weather threat is right along this initial line where you're seeing the darkest colors, where you're seeing the most lightning strikes, and of course where we have the severe thunderstorm warning. So the good news is with these warnings, it does give you a little bit of a heads up, right? We've been extended for severe thunderstorm warnings into Upson and Lamar counties, who are just now beginning to see some impacts from this. So it kind of gives you some time to say, okay, heads up, a severe thunderstorm warning has been issued for you, which means that the line is going to be making its way towards your location here, probably in the next couple of minutes. I'm just keeping up with the chat. I'm going to throw it over to Alex while I catch up on what the Storm Prediction Center is saying, and while I keep in touch with the National Weather Service. So Alex, I'll take it back to you for a minute.
Well, live coverage right here for you, because we did literally just receive an update probably about 5 seconds ago. You can see this little patch of maybe some light green right here. So this is looking at our base velocity right now. We did have a little notch in there. We were monitoring some broad rotation. It does look like that is really disorganizing now. So you'll have your red colors, you'll have your green colors on this base velocity map. What that means is winds just varying in direction. So when you have the green winds, they're moving towards the radar. Right now, this is tapping into the Peachtree City radar up to our north. So all of these winds are moving towards that radar, and these red winds, those are going to be moving away from the radar. So when you have those colors that are really close together deferring right now, so say we had a patch of maybe this dark red that you see, but right here below we had a patch of this light green, that would indicate a lot of deferring winds. And when you have winds in two different speeds, that's what starts to cause that circulation a little bit. So we did see a little notch right here of this light green, and like I said, that continues to look to be disorganizing. It was very broad rotation, but something that we're obviously continuing to fluctuate back and forth with on the base velocity map. This is moving into the far western corridor of Upson County right now. So this is still a severe thunderstorm warning, a good sign that we are seeing any sort of possible rotation start to dissipate a little bit. So southeast of Woodbury, and then going into very, very local areas of Upson County, just to the northwest of Crest, Sunset Village, and west of Atwater, Hannah's Mill, and then northwest of Thomaston, of course, in Upson County. That's where maybe some of the winds are a little bit gustier, but along with that, still heavy rainfall. We still see patches of very dark red up in this corner that I was looking at. Plenty of lightning to go around. Obviously, these lightning strikes, when zoomed in, doesn't look like too much, but obviously zoomed out, you're still hearing the thunder from all of these lightning strikes in the near vicinity, as the heaviest rain does clip the northwest corner of Upson County. So obviously, other people in southern Pike County around Concord, Meansville, probably moving towards the Zebulon area, you guys definitely don't want to be outdoors during this storm. It's a pretty strong thunderstorm, even a severe thunderstorm with its fair share of gusty winds, and there is still a little bit of a hail core embedded within this, I do believe. We're not seeing it on our hail parameter right here, which is always a good sign, but we have seen indications that there has been maybe a hail core with some pea to dime sized hail, not really talking anything substantial necessarily. But at the same time, that's still another reason that you don't want to be outside. You don't want those ice pellets hitting you as you are venturing out and about, maybe trying to take an outdoor lunch break around this time and such. Not the best idea. That's why the biggest piece of advice we can continue to give you is just be somewhere indoors, continue to stay updated with us. And like Ansley said, after these reds and all of these lightning does move past you, the weather does get a little bit calmer. You'll still have some steady rainfall, maybe even borderline some heavy showers, but the main severe weather threat will be over for you. It's this initial line that we're wanting to keep a very close eye on. And once again, Upson County and parts of Pike County and this very tip, this southwestern tip of Lamar County, all within this severe thunderstorm warning that will go for 30 more minutes until 1:30 later on this afternoon. And areas that are encompassed within this include Thomaston, The Rock, Meansville, and all those local areas I just mentioned in the northwest corner of Upson County, including areas like Sunset Village, Crest, Jones Settlement, Atwater, Hannah's Mill, Clearwater Springs, taking it up into Pike County, Highway 109, excuse me, Highway 74 down in northwest Upson County, and anywhere that you see outlined within this yellow polygon is definitely somewhere where I'm advising you, just go indoors, stay updated with us. That's the best place that you want to be, because driving during this, being outside during this isn't a good decision at all. And then taking it down to the southwest, still monitoring this warning over here around Cusseta, just to the southeast of Columbus, but the edge of this warning is clipping Taylor County as we are going to monitor this. This warning going to expire at 1:30. We could see it continued into central Georgia, just given the general direction of these severe thunderstorms. Looks like Ansley has something else pulled up over there. Let's take it back over to her for more.
All right, so I just kind of wanted to give some perspective about the areas that are being monitored the closest at the moment. So if we take a look at just this line, what I'm looking at right now is base velocity, so getting an idea of what the winds and the direction of the storms are doing. You can see much brighter reflectivity values further towards our north, just past the Peachtree City radar here. So down here in central Georgia, over in Upson County, we're seeing a little bit more disorganization in terms of potential rotation and just generally the strength of the winds and the movement of these storms. But further in North Georgia, you can see some brighter values here. And I just want to take it back a couple of scans so you can see that the National Weather Service was talking a few minutes ago about a little area of brief rotation in the south corner of Clayton County. So Clayton County is this county right here, tiny little county right there, where you can see this really bright value is I think what they were flagging here, and you can see it just continuing to get a little stronger, and now they've issued a new severe thunderstorm warning that's covering up a little bit of exactly what I'm talking about, but you can still see that bright value right there, and they were kind of watching this, just a little brief area of rotation, and then as they've gone out a couple more scans, it seems to have lessened just a bit. But it's just something to note when we're watching for rotation, when we're talking about this line with these really high wind speeds and the chance to just drop one of those brief spin-up tornadoes that will maybe pick back up just as quickly as it touched down. Those are the kind of things that the National Weather Service will be watching for. But if we go back into our area here in central Georgia, less organization and just a little bit less of the robust wind speeds that we're seeing further north in North Georgia. So that's actually a positive sign. And even if I take it over to storm relative velocity, still not seeing a ton of rotation. There's definitely some brief areas that may look like they might start spinning here and there. But other than that, we're not seeing probably as strong of wind speeds as they're seeing up towards McDonough, where they have that new severe thunderstorm warning issued a little further towards the north. So of course, the possibility is still going to be there all afternoon. We're going to be paying attention to that, but I just wanted to give you maybe some positive news. We're still seeing plenty of impacts down here, however. Lots of lightning, especially with the the severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued for Upson County. But like I said, the wind speeds just a little stronger and rotation just a little tighter up in North Georgia, but still no tornado warnings in effect at the moment. That's just something that can happen for the rest of the morning. We'll be watching for areas that could briefly start to rotate. So yeah, that's just a little perspective about what's going on further towards our north there. And with the rest of the severe thunderstorm warnings, we're kind of just going to be playing the waiting game for the afternoon here. It's something that you're used to seeing. We'll just keep on waiting for them to probably continue most of these severe thunderstorm warnings into our area. It's been a little bit of a slower mover this afternoon, so still kind of waiting for areas like Monroe, Crawford. Then maybe you're beginning to hear a couple of rumbles of thunder. That's still further out towards the west at the moment, not quite making its way into your area here just yet. And something else that will be interesting that we maybe haven't quite touched on yet is if they sit over you for a longer period of time, we're probably looking at some good rainfall accumulation, which in my opinion is actually going to be a pretty good thing. I know we've been dry for quite some time and also have had a lot of pollen in the air, so rain is definitely welcome in our area. But in terms of main impacts right now, it's still really just kind of on the western end of Upson County. So I'll keep my eye on that, and I'll keep watching the chance for rotation here, but I'll take it back to Alex for the next couple minutes here.
And something else I wanted to point out, obviously, we were looking at those kind of patches of yellow color when we were looking at the winds associated with that possible rotation that the National Weather Service was monitoring. This is once again to the north of us, but giving you an idea of some of the occasional wind gusts that this line of storms can possess. Velocity 69 miles an hour, so that would be your occasional gust, not a steady wind of 69 miles an hour. However, this normally isn't the most accurate. This is probably a little bit higher up than surface level. However, the winds I do imagine are just below that threshold, so obviously warranting a severe thunderstorm warning. When you get winds at 58 or higher, that's when you start to get a severe thunderstorm warning. And 69 is definitely above that threshold. Like I said, probably not actually that gusty. This is a little bit higher aloft, but still, these are very damaging wind gusts at that 70 miles an hour. That was something we were outlining this morning with the possible straight line wind gusts. So just because they're not rotating necessarily, they are still going to pack a punch in terms of how gusty they are. And you see just behind this patch of yellow right there that we were just clicking on, even when transitioning into this very bright red color, wind gusts of about 50 miles an hour. So that's what we're going to be looking out for, and especially with these severe thunderstorms as they trek into central Georgia, really monitoring how fast those occasional wind gusts can get, because that gives you a rough idea of what it does feel like outside. And again, probably not 69 miles an hour necessarily, but I do believe it's above that 58 mile an hour threshold. So as it still stands, we still have this severe thunderstorm warning moving through this northwestern corner of Upson County, probably transitioning a little bit more into southern Pike County to the south of Zebulon, but still any areas around this polygon, definitely go ahead and make plans to be inside, because we're likely looking at the extension of this warning in areas further up to the northeast. That would include maybe Culloden down in southwest for Monroe County, excuse me. Barnesville over in Lamar County, High Falls would be in the vicinity of this. Forsyth would be in the vicinity of this if this warning is to get extended, but we'll have to keep updated on that. We still have about 20 minutes to go until the warning is set to expire, but also keeping an eye out to the southwest. So seeing a patch of, well, we just got another update on the radar scan. We still see some patches of that very dark red. It looked like there might have even been a little bit of pink in the heaviest portion of this severe thunderstorm warning. This is still not going for any central Georgia counties, but just over to the right of that yellow polygon, you can see Butler, Rupert, Reynolds over in Taylor County. Still our far western counties starting to see the impacts of this line of storms already moving through. And the good news is, if you live farther to the west, you're already seeing these impacts. You will start to clear out a little bit earlier into the afternoon. That 6 p.m. window, that's going to encompass areas farther over to our eastern corridor. So the farther west that you do live, you will get some clearing earlier, hopefully within the next hour or two, really after that main line of heavy rain and lightning does push through. And it does look like maybe seeing a little bit of scattering of lightning. It's hard to tell right now when it's bunched up so close together, but when they start to get a little bit grayer in color, like what you're seeing just here underneath the arrow for the severe thunderstorm warning box, that means the lightning flashes have happened a little bit of time ago, maybe about 10 to 20 or 30 minutes or so ago, and not seeing as much lightning on the backside of this. So still some steady and heavy rain, some sporadic lightning strikes, but nothing that's really clumping together like these severe thunderstorm warnings moving into Upson County right now. Let's take a look at some of these other just kind of leading cells. They're not necessarily severe in nature, but you can still see some red right there, some heavy rainfall, the clustering together of lightning. So while it's not necessarily large in nature, it is still a strong thunderstorm, and that is just to the west of Roberta right now. It may be clipping the northern edge of downtown Roberta. We have some steady rainfall around Gray up in Jones County. This was a cluster of more so some sprinkles up in Bibb County, so continuing to show you the strengthening trend with some of these leading cells just ahead of the initial line. And then we have some scattered showers down in southern Twiggs, eastern Houston County, probably around the Bon Air area, Robbins Air Force Base, and another good cluster right here. I'm starting to fade off the screen right there, around Irwinton and Wilkinson County, stretching up into Baldwin County, more so southern Baldwin County, maybe around Lake St. Clair, up near the Milledgeville area, stretching in to the western portion of Washington County, just to the west of Sandersville. Scattered shower right there over in Johnson County. And then down in Lawrence County, we still have our fair share of some scattered, maybe more so heavy rainfall amounts right there. I did just take a peek over there, Ansley. It looks like there's another tornado warning issued to the north of us, but where is that issued for?
So that's exactly that area that we were just talking about, that area of bright yellow or kind of orangey that you were seeing on the base velocity. So that is what we call a mesovortex, which is kind of a big word, but generally it just means it's a really kind of tight, small area of rotation embedded within one of these lines of thunderstorms that we're seeing come across our area. So that's it right there. That's what triggered a tornado warning for, it looks like, Henry, Newton, and Rockdale counties here. And this is just one of those things that's been tightening up for a few minutes and then broadening right back out. So they've kind of been touch and go with the warnings, waiting to see if it would really kind of hold together before issuing another tornado warning within this storm. They've also mentioned that there is an area of hail that is greater than ½ an inch. I maybe can kind of see it there on our hail parameter. They said it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So that's kind of the area that they just flagged for some brief rotation there. But like with the past few, it's probably going to broaden right back up in the next couple of minutes. That's the kind of tornado warnings that we're looking at for the rest of the afternoon here. Ones that can touch down really briefly and then pick right back up. We're not really talking about tornado warnings that are going to be super long duration or long track, but definitely enough rotation here just to the north of McDonough to issue a tornado warning. So again, that is north of our viewing area here. What's going on in our area? Still not seeing any areas of specific rotation here. Along this severe thunderstorm warning seems to be the areas that are giving us the brightest reflectivity values in terms of velocity. So probably a couple areas within this line maybe trying to do a little bit of rotating here. So that's just kind of what is probably the strongest area in terms of wind speeds and in terms of potential rotation, is this severe thunderstorm warning that's just to the north of us. So kind of just to the north of Monroe County, but does potentially extend into Jasper County in the next little bit here. So it's not currently extending into that area, but likely will be pushing this direction here in the next little bit. So we'll keep our eye on that. And I will see also if I can flip over to any of the sky cams to see if we have any sort of visual of that tornado warning there. I know earlier we were kind of watching it roll. Unfortunately, I don't think I have any that are going to be that far to the west, but that is a look at that tornado warning. I will also mention we were kind of talking a little bit about wind speeds not being super high or a little bit lower down here in our area, but this specific severe thunderstorm warning that's over Upson County is starting to show some brighter values in terms of the velocity, which means the wind speeds are probably picking up. And I've been keeping my eye on this area just over Thomaston here. It's tried to do a little bit of broad rotation over the past few minutes. Obviously, nothing that's tight enough to issue a tornado warning by any means. So not saying that, but just saying I'm keeping my eye on this in case it does maybe try to tighten up. I would say in terms of what we're watching across our entire area, that's probably the area that I'm keeping my eye on the most, just because now you can see some of those brighter red values, which means the wind speeds are definitely getting high in that region at the very least, and then maybe trying to do a little bit of broad rotating just over Thomaston. So if you are in Thomaston, just waiting this one out indoors, because it's going to be kind of rolling over for the next few minutes here, but it will quickly be gone. So hopefully we can just kick this thing out of Thomaston without that little area doing any more tightening in terms of the rotation. But that's a look at what's going on wind speed wise and also rotation wise. There's no more tornado warnings issued, and there's none for our central Georgia area. So I'll keep my eye on that. Alex, I'll take it back to you here for the next few minutes.
And just wanted to kind of draw a rough timeline, which areas are going to see those heaviest impacts next. So I took this polygon and I took the motion of the storm that has this severe thunderstorm issued in Upson County. So this is not set in stone, give or take about a 5-minute window with these times. I did draw it about 2 minutes ago, and some portions of these storms are going to move a little bit quicker than others. But it does look like all of these storms have a general east-northeasterly motion within this frontal boundary. Obviously, the direction of the front is moving from northwest down to southeast, but the storm relative motion is moving up to the northeast. So you can see the areas outlined over here on the left side of your screen about when you'll start to see those heaviest impacts. Jackson probably starting to see some of those heaviest impacts now up in Butts County, Butler around 1:30, 1:36 in Monroe County around Forsyth, Roberta 142 in Crawford County, Monticello up in Jasper County 149, Lizella in West Bibb around 158, really close to the 2 p.m. hour, and then just after the 2 p.m. hour 207 we can expect potential impacts down in Peach County around Fort Valley, and obviously Byron would be quick to see some of those heaviest impacts around that same timing. So like I said, not set in stone, give or take about a 5-minute window in either direction, because we can see the motion of these storms slow in one area, and I did draw this about 3 to 4 minutes ago, so obviously the most severe impacts and the heaviest impacts are probably creeping into this dark gray area that I did draw on the polygon below. But this is encompassing many of our western and northwestern counties here in central Georgia, pushing towards Interstate I-75, and then it will be making its way further eastward. Not to say that you can't see some low-end thunderstorms out ahead of this. We're actually seeing the strengthening of this tiny cell over here in Jones County. There's a bunch of flashes of lightning coupling together as that does continue to move through before this main line of rain and wind, maybe even a little bit of hail and possibly even the rotation. So that's something we'll continue to keep an eye out for. Something I haven't got around to mentioning too much, if you did tune into the midday show, we got this update just before midday went on. We have a severe thunderstorm watch for all counties here in central Georgia, along with all the counties to the west of us, to the east, the southwest. Counties down to the south and the southeast haven't been issued in one as of yet. But this is very far and wide, and this will go until 7 p.m. tonight. So we're expecting this to clear maybe around the 6 p.m. hour, maybe a little bit earlier now that we're seeing the system kind of trek in a little bit ahead of what the models did say. But 7 p.m. for good measure, and all counties in central Georgia are highlighted in this yellow color. Well, you may ask, what's the difference between the watch and the warning? The watch just means all the ingredients are there, but the warning does mean it is currently happening. So kind of think of it like tacos. I'm sure many of you have seen that viral graphic. Think about a watch as you have all the ingredients to make your tacos. You have your chicken, you have your cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, hot sauce, tortillas, all of that laid out, but you haven't made the taco yet. Severe thunderstorm warning means we're having tacos. You've built the taco, you're getting ready to eat it. That's kind of the difference between the watches and the warnings. I know obviously a little elementary school, but it is a simple way to understand the difference between these because they're both yellow and it can get confusing. But this will go until 7 p.m. tonight, and we are likely going to see counties farther to the west trimmed off before that 7 p.m. hour. There were counties over here in Alabama. They were in the severe thunderstorm watch as of most of this morning, and they have since been taken out after that main line. The heaviest rain, the gustiest winds, the coupling of lightning together, that has all moved out of the state of Alabama. But now we're next in line, so after that main line does move through, counties to the west of us and in west central Georgia will be trimmed off this severe thunderstorm watch. And hopefully we can end this watch a little bit before the 7 p.m. hour, somewhere around maybe 5:30 or 6, as this line of storms does move out. So let's take one last look at the radar real quick. Does look like no severe warnings, or no new severe warnings, rather I should say. Like I said, there's a lot on here. You have the severe thunderstorm watch, you have the severe thunderstorm warnings, you have tornado warnings to the north of us. Haven't seen any new warnings right now, but we're approaching that 130 threshold that these two warnings do go for. So we're going to see what happens with these. If they're going to extend these warnings into central Georgia, or they're going to allow them to expire, and maybe, well, there we go, right in real time. We did see an extension of that warning. Ansley, you want to cover what's the latest with that new warning that we did just get issued?
I can. And you know what? I did a little makeshift warning for myself there because they issued a special weather statement, which I actually thought was an encouraging sign, because normally when they go with a special weather statement, that means that they're not going to go with a severe thunderstorm warning, but it looks like they've decided to go ahead with a severe thunderstorm warning. So I'll clear my little drawing there. This severe thunderstorm warning is extended for our northern counties here. So clipping the northern portion of Monroe County, covering all of Jasper County, and then basically all of Putnam County as well. Now I'll mention with this severe thunderstorm warning, it's attached to the line that does still have a tornado warning on it. Oh yeah, when I take a look at the wind speeds here, so looking at the base velocity, really high value coming just out of Lamar County into Monroe County. So this area where you're seeing this really bright yellow here, that's where the wind speeds are probably the highest at the moment, and that is making its way into northern Monroe County. So if you're over maybe in High Falls, or if you happen to be out on I-75 in northern Monroe County, or know somebody who's near I-75 in Monroe County, maybe waiting this out off the roads while this kind of rolls over, because the wind speeds are really strong right here. If I can try to get a reading without this warning on here. Let's see. All right, yeah, so probably close somewhere to 65 miles per hour. I maybe would even say it may be a little gustier than that. Sometimes if I don't grab the right pixel, I can't quite get the highest reading there. So definitely the area of strongest wind speeds at the moment. The positive news here is the area of rotation that they were watching up near McDonough, so kind of this little area right here, has at least broadened out enough to where they drop or are dropping the tornado warning. So hopefully it stays that way and doesn't try to tighten back up. But it is just kind of important to note that if you are in Jasper County, Northern Monroe County, and Putnam counties, this is kind of the severe thunderstorm warning that seems to have the strongest wind speeds and has had some areas that have briefly tightened in terms of rotation and triggered some tornado warnings. But yeah, when you look at it big picture, you can see that area in Lamar County heading into Monroe County definitely seems to be the highest in terms of wind speed. So it's definitely about to get really gusty towards High Falls. It's definitely already very gusty over in the kind of eastern part of Lamar County past Minor north of Barnesville here. Otherwise, I know I mentioned earlier to the south of Thomaston, I was watching for an area of broad rotation. The good news is they never triggered a tornado warning, and it's definitely broadened up since then. So not monitoring any areas of rotation anymore in Upson County. I would say pretty much right now, we just seem to be dealing with some straight line winds. So tornado potential at the moment is looking low, but we're definitely going to keep our eye on this severe thunderstorm warning that extends for Monroe, Jasper, and Putnam, because that does seem to be the biggest problem area, I'd say, at the moment. So I'll keep my eye on that for now. Alex, I'll throw it back to you.
And something else I want to continue to monitor, what's going down to the southwest of us. So we were talking about this tornado warning, and we have continued to see that trim back, indicating they probably won't extend that. The rotation didn't look too impressive when I looked at it, but that's north of Dothan, so not an immediate concern for us. But we have seen these two yellow polygons issued for areas like Dothan, Cuthbert in southwest Georgia, down to Chipley, going all the way down to the Florida Panhandle. This is indicating that this line down to the southwest of us is continuing to strengthen. And if you remember when I drew that polygon just a little bit ago, these storms have a general east to northeasterly direction. So we're expecting these warnings to continue. They kind of have that trapezoid shape. I think it's a trapezoid, parallelogram, excuse me. I had to go back to geometry right there for a second. But these severe thunderstorm boxes are more than likely going to be extended farther up to the northeast. Well, what's northeast of those boxes, you may ask? That would be southern central Georgia. So now we're seeing the strengthening of the southern portion of this line of storms. We didn't have any severe thunderstorm warnings as of about 2 to 3 hours ago back in the state of Alabama, but now we've continued to see multiple forecast office pick up on the strengthening of these storms as they're moving into a more suitable environment. We have a lot of moisture, we have a lot of instability, all those things that you need for severe weather. We have present in central Georgia as the system is tracking through during a warmer portion of the day. That's what we've been referring to a lot over the last couple of days, because the last few severe weather risks, they've been overnight into early morning risk, which obviously you're well into bed and asleep and just trying to wind down for the night. The good news is that has happened during a cooler portion of the day. That's not happening this time. Luckily, many of you are awake, you're out and about, and you are aware of what's going on, but this is passing when we have the most surface heat available. Thankfully, we had a lot of cloud cover and some showers yesterday, even some sprinkles this morning that have continued to use up all the fuel that we've had in the atmosphere. However, there is still available fuel that we are seeing down to the southwest. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on the southern extent of this line of storms, because it could be approaching southern counties here in central Georgia within the next hour or two roughly. But right now, the immediate concern is more than likely just for these 4 counties, 5 counties over in our far western corridor. Upson County, Taylor County, Crawford County, getting into Monroe County, and then obviously Pike, Lamar, Spalding, getting up into Butts, and a little bit up into Jasper as well. These counties are starting to see some of these thunderstorms fire up, whether they're going to be one of those leading cells we were talking about that aren't attached to the main line, like just to the northeast of Roberta here. Still a strong thunderstorm, still plenty of red, some heavy rainfall, some coupling of lightning together. But the severe thunderstorm warnings that do exist in central Georgia right now are this one for Upson County, Pike, a little bit into Lamar, and back over into Talbot County. And we have one more minute on this, so I imagine this is going to pop away once we hit the 1:30 hour, and then it is going to pick back up where they did just issue that new polygon that Ansley was talking about. And then further over to the west and the southwest of us, this severe thunderstorm warning, I believe it goes until 1:30 as well. This box will likely pop off. We'll have to keep an eye on what these dark reds do right here that are approaching the west end of Taylor County over to the west of us right now. And we are expecting them to continue through counties like Crawford County, Bibb County eventually, southern Monroe County. So just because you weren't included in this severe thunderstorm warning doesn't mean you won't likely be issued in another one that they do pop up here very shortly. Still 1:29. It's funny when you get 1 minute away from these warnings expiring that how slow time seems to go. But right now, a lot of lightning. Haven't taken a look at hail very recently. Let me pop that over, but then Ansley's got some of the winds popped up that we're going to take a closer look at. So
I was going to talk about too was that area of hail that you're talking about. So
go ahead
touch
and
on
take
it
over
for
then.
sure.
Yeah, you got
That's
it.
the same area that I'm talking about. So go for it.
No, you go ahead.
Oh,
You're
okay.
on the screen.
Do it. All right, so I just wanted to draw attention to that area in northern Monroe County here, right over High Falls. I was able to kind of pull the GDOT sky cams, and it even went out for the High Falls Road I-75 sky cam, which means the wind speeds there are pretty gusty. The one you're seeing here now on the screen is just a little bit to the south of the area of highest wind speeds here. So there's a lot of gusty winds. You can kind of see them blowing around the trees on the sky cam there. I would say the area that's got the just slightly higher wind speeds, maybe just north of what you're seeing, but there's a lot of people out on I-75. So again, it's probably best to wait these out indoors. You can see people blinking their flashers down there, which you're actually not supposed to do in severe thunderstorm situations, but definitely probably impacting the visibility down there. Wind speed's pretty high and the rain's coming down pretty heavy as well. So I'm going to take it back over to our radar here so I can talk about specifically what I'm talking about. This really, really bright area of yellow and orange here, right over High Falls in the northern tier of Monroe County. That just seems to be where the wind speeds are the highest. And you know what? Let's see if I'm seeing anything else on storm relative velocity. Not really. I wouldn't necessarily say this is specifically an area of rotation, but at the very least, the winds there are pretty gusty. And along with that, we are seeing areas of hail in there as well. So in terms of this whole entire line, this is definitely the area that we're paying attention to the most, probably where things are getting the loudest and getting a little bit gusty as well. You can see that kind of extends into the southern portion of Butts County, just south of Jackson as well, where the, I'll turn the lightning off so you can see, where the reflectivity values are getting down to some of that purple there. Definitely seeing strong winds. And the National Weather Service actually, while I'm on this topic, just said they're seeing really strong wind speeds as well, but no signs of rotation. So no signs of necessarily rotation at the moment. I wouldn't say this is going to trigger a tornado warning, but the wind speeds are pretty gusty here, certainly dealing with some strong straight line winds in that area. So sorry to jump the gun on you, Alex, but I was definitely watching the same area, so I think we kind of had the same idea there.
Oh, you were all good on that. So you already had it pulled up. I figured it was better to let you explain it all. So right now we're going through the severe weather timing. So this is a graphic I posted a little bit earlier today and kind of giving you a rough idea of which areas are going to see their impacts within about a 2-hour window. Now you're not going to see the impacts for this entire 2-hour window that for the color that you are outlined in, but let's kind of break it down. So this kind of pinkish red color that you see, it's encompassing most of the left screen, most of the top left of the screen. They all saw their impacts before 1 p.m. So maybe some areas seeing the impacts just past 1 p.m., but most of central Georgia here in this yellow color. You'll see it coordinates with this yellow box right here, 1 to 3 p.m. That's the window that we're looking at potential severe weather impacts, and we've seen that come to fruition in areas like Thomaston, getting close to Forsyth, the northern edge of Monroe County. Butler starting to see the heaviest rain move through over in Taylor County, and what's next will be areas like Roberta, seeing the rain get really close to counties like Macon County, and then eventually Dooley County, all these other counties farther to the east and down towards the south in this yellow area like Gray, Macon, Warner Robins, Milledgeville. So we're just past 1:30 right now. We still have a little less than an hour and a half left in this window. Plenty of other areas are going to see those impacts within that window. And then we transition into the 3 to 5 p.m. window. So counties over to the west, you've probably seen the heaviest and the strongest impacts associated with this line of storms. You still may see some rain. Doesn't look like the severe weather risk is really going to pan out after that 3 p.m. window for these areas in the yellow. Then we transition into the pink, counties like Washington County, getting over into the eastern edge of Baldwin County, eastern Hancock County, areas like Irwinton, Wrightsville, Dublin, Cochrane, Hawkinsville, maybe a little bit of Cordele kind of on the dividing line right there. But like I said, this is more of a rough sketch right now. Abbeville down in Wilcox County, McRae, Alamo, Soperton, Eastman, everyone that you see in this pink shade, expect your impacts somewhere between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. And if you are farther over to the left of the shaded color, you're going to see those impacts closer to the beginning of that time frame. So areas like Cochrane and Bleckley County, getting over to Jeffersonville, probably closer to 3 p.m. and not necessarily near the 5 p.m. window whatsoever. Then after 6, this should be out of central Georgia. The heaviest impacts will still have some rain that we closely monitor, maybe some sporadic flashes of lightning, a little bit of rumbles of thunder, some heavy showers, but that's kind of the rough timing right there. It looks to all move through in about a 4-hour window. So giving you an idea of how fast moving this system is. And obviously the faster that these systems do move through, the gustier their winds do get ahead of them. So it does look like we only have one active standing severe thunderstorm warning in central Georgia right now. And that is still the one up in northern Monroe County, Butts County, going into Jasper County, Putnam County, and a lot of other counties to the north of us, encompassing areas like Covington, Madison, along the I-20 corridor, and continuing its push east-northeast, each sections of these storms. But not to take away from the fact that even if you don't have a severe thunderstorm warning, look at all these dark red colors and all these flashes of lightning, something you don't want to be outside for. So if you're towards the east of this main line of rain, it would be easier if I paused it right there. It keeps moving away on me. So this heavy line of rain moving into Culloden, maybe getting really close to Roberta and Crawford County. Looks like it's moving into Butler. Reynolds will be next. Anywhere east of this main line, you're going to want to go ahead and make plans to be inside. You could see one or two of these cells ahead of it. They're not necessarily severe storms, but they are still strong storms with heavy rainfall and plenty of lightning to go around with them. And we have only seen a little bit of a hail core, maybe upwards to 0.3 of an inch, 0.4 of an inch, with that cell that is moving through northern Monroe County now. So hail, not as much of a concern. We've had low confidence in that all day, but you still could see some hail as the system does move through. But like I said, areas eastward, go ahead and make plans to just be inside, ride these storms out from the safety of your home, anywhere that you are, maybe you're at work, somewhere inside, just don't be out and about driving through that, because Ansley just gave you a picture of what was going on from our GDOT cameras, and it looks like a messy picture out on the roads. I imagine those people are probably slowed down to about 20 to 25 miles an hour on the interstate. It's just something that is really going to limit your visibility. And obviously, if you do bring even a little bit of hail into that, that can crack your windshield and such. And I know that's nothing that no one wants on their Monday, especially with spring break for many areas right now. So maybe just ride out the storms for a little bit. It will be quick moving. Areas like Thomaston probably saw impacts for about 45 minutes. Now the rain is starting to get lighter. The lightning's going to be more scattered. Then you can venture out the door, make your travel plans, go anywhere. I would definitely recommend traveling west after the main line has moved through. If you are traveling towards the east after the heaviest rain and the gustiest winds have passed you, then I would definitely allow for a little more time for this storm to kick into motion, get well out ahead of you so you're not driving back through all of these severe weather impacts. And areas farther to the east, go ahead. Everyone in central Georgia, try to just be inside during this window. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. And the other piece of advice was to secure loose items that you don't want flying around or that could act as flying debris with these gusty winds that we've seen. And hopefully many of you have taken that precaution. But if you live well to the east, say Wrightsville or Dublin, you still have some time to go outside, maybe bring some things inside or under a covering that you don't want blowing around, and continue to stay updated with all of these severe thunderstorm warnings that we have seen issued. But it is good to see that not necessarily seeing any severe thunderstorm warnings right now besides that one that is in north central Georgia. But again, down to our southwest, these storms are going to continue their approach into southern Georgia, southwestern Georgia, and we could very well see some of these warnings clip areas like Chris County, Dooley County, Wilcox County, down in our far south and southwestern corner, especially along the I-75 corner as well. Driving down I-75 at this time of day is definitely not recommended. Obviously, I know many people have to get out the door. Just be sure you're being extra cautious. If you have to be on the roads, they're definitely recommending being indoors as the heaviest of impacts do roll through you. I see, Ansley, you have the winds pulled up again. Any indication of any possible rotation that we're seeing? That's something we really want to keep a close eye on with recent tornado-warned storms.
Yeah, absolutely. The good news is no. The answer, short answer, no. Not especially in our central Georgia area, but still, nonetheless, something that we were talking about building up to this was that the main threat with this line was not necessarily going to be the tornado threat, but the gusty and straight line wind threat. And we're talking a lot about this area in northern Monroe, southern Butts County. So that's what you're looking at here to give you some perspective. We are kind of taking a closer look. Mainly, this is the southern portion of Butts County. Right here is Monroe, so High Falls, Berner area. I'm getting wind speed values in excess of 70 miles per hour. So here I was able to kind of grab one that said 75 miles per hour. This is definitely the area where the winds are getting the gustiest. That is definitely still wind speeds that are impactful, capable of taking down some trees, definitely capable of doing some damage. So if we're talking about specific areas that we should pay attention to, this is definitely one of them. And I'll take you out kind of big picture here. Like I said, the good news is they're not rotating, but nonetheless, this is the area that's given us just the brightest value. If we go all the way big picture, you can see it clear as day. That's southern Butts County, northern Monroe County, heading into Jasper County is where the wind speeds are just really strong at the moment. Even probably the highest right here heading into Jasper County, this leading edge. Let me flip back on the reflectivity so we can just see what that looks like. It's got heavy rainfall in it as well, and there has been noted a couple areas of hail at times. Right now I'm not seeing any sort of hail at the moment, so maybe that's lessened up for a few minutes here, which would be great news. But yeah, that is definitely the area where the wind speeds are getting the strongest. And like Alex said, only one severe thunderstorm warning, so the wind speeds are a bit lower further towards the south here, which is still good, but we're going to keep our eye on that specific area. I'll also note, earlier when we did have a tornado warning over towards Peachtree City and towards Coweta and Carroll counties, they're now reporting a lot of wind damage in this kind of region that I'm circling right here. So a lot of trees down, power lines, branches, things like that. A lot of damage of what was potentially a tornado in this region. So they did have a tornado warning. It's not yet been a confirmed tornado, but definitely caused some damage over in that area. So in terms of damage reports, in terms of what we're seeing at the moment, that seems to be it. And like Alex said, I'm encouraged that they haven't gone with another severe thunderstorm warning for areas further towards the south just yet, but this line is starting to make its way into a few more regions that haven't had it just yet. So kind of heading into Crawford, Monroe, and probably entering the Bibb County area before too long here. Alex, I think we'll probably start to hear some thunder, start to hear some rainfall here in the next few minutes.
Yeah, exactly right. And I actually popped it over to the Macon Sky Cam real quick. Now this is looking mainly west, a little bit to the northwest, and then obviously not much of a picture right now, right here on top of Atrium Navicent. And obviously the buildings kind of inhibit a little bit of the view, but you can still see the line of trees out there in the distance. And it looks like we just got an update right there. And some darker clouds way off in the distance. Now, the clouds are closer than they do appear. It's kind of like that sign on your rear view mirror that you do have, and maybe a little bit of a flash of lightning that we did just see off in the distance. I don't know if that was just a little bit of buffering with our camera. Let's take it over somewhere where we do have good visibility to the west. That would be the Georgia National Fairgrounds. What's going on in counties over to the west of that? And still, just darker clouds off in the distance. Not necessarily really dense cloud cover ahead of this system. So we were thinking you can occasionally see your peaks of sunshine. However, it is predominantly going to be a mostly cloudy morning, and this is a good thing. Any surface heat that we did receive, that's just going to continue to prime the atmosphere. There you go. I guess that was a flash of lightning because we just heard a little rumble of thunder right here. But right now, seeing maybe some clearing, but the clouds do get darker as you look off into the west, and that's picking up on those storms that are currently present over Taylor County, maybe over to Peach County and such. So we'll continue to look out towards the west over the next couple of hours and really try to get a real picture view and give you a picture within your homes. Obviously, the last thing we want you to do is venturing outside to see how it looks. So we're going to try to provide you with the tools necessary with that. Now, I did get a notification about the severe thunderstorm watch, and it looks like finally it did update. Actually, let me drag the text off of here. So we were talking about, well, if the text will go off for me. There we go. I won't drag it this time. So we're talking about all these counties that were issued farther over to the west, the northwest. We have seen them trim back over in Alabama. We're now seeing the first cluster of counties trimmed off here in the state of Georgia. It's no one here in central Georgia yet, unfortunately. However, we have seen the heaviest impacts move out of counties just to the west of us, over towards Columbus, up towards Peachtree City, areas that we did see some possible rotation, some tornado warnings, our fair share of severe thunderstorm warnings. So we'll continue to provide you with the updates on this. And once you are out of the severe thunderstorm watch, I think we can give you the all clear for that severe weather. I would say that probably areas in Upson County are going to be the first to start to see the clearing in that severe weather. Eventually Lamar County as well, but already seeing neighboring counties, Pike County, Spalding County, just to the north of those two. They have been cleared out of that severe thunderstorm watch. That's going to be the general trend, probably coming down from the northwest in the same direction that this front is coming from as a whole, down towards the southeast. So these counties down here in our southeastern corner that we always refer to, I feel like, when we have some sort of a severe weather event, Dodge County, Telfair, Wheeler, Lawrence, over into Montgomery, Trutland counties, probably going to be some of the last ones trimmed off of this. The severe thunderstorm watch will go until 7 p.m. tonight. Hopefully we see all of these watch counties expire before that 7 p.m. hour. However, right now we're seeing maybe a little bit on par with the speed that the models were resolving the system moving through. It might have moved in a little bit earlier than expected, so maybe 30 minutes or so. Maybe we can expect some clearing by about 6:30 rather than 7 p.m. But we'll continue to keep you updated as we see counties trimmed off of that, because that's something else that we want to continue to do and keep you updated with. Let you know when you're all clear and you can continue about your day, and not necessarily saying you're all clear from rainfall, because still look at that behind that main line that has moved through over in Upson County. So you're still seeing scattered flashes of lightning, but oranges, maybe even getting into some dark orange, borderline red colors. You still have a good amount of some steady and heavy rainfall that will encompass the backside of this system. However, that main line is going to use up all of the severe weather instability, all that moisture. So we're really just looking at a good amount of rainfall, and that is not a bad thing whatsoever. We're going to take any bit of rain that we can get, with the pollen being as high as it can. Obviously, the severe weather is going to come first, but then you'll get a good amount of rain on the backside to hopefully try to alleviate some dry conditions, wash away all that pollen for a little bit. It could very well be back at the end of this week, though. We'll focus on that after we get through today. Obviously, a bit of a messy Monday that you're seeing on the satellite and radar picture, and still only one current severe thunderstorm warning here in central Georgia. Monroe County up into Jasper, Putnam counties, parts of Butts County, and then also towards the north, other areas like Covington, getting towards the I-20 corridor. That's where we have some very gusty winds, and we do have a lot of rainfall and a good amount of lightning clustering together. But that's one thing I have noticed since this line has moved across the state line, seeing the scattering of some lightning. Not to take away from these still are strong thunderstorms, but they're not necessarily severe criteria. Again, you need two things in order for a thunderstorm to be severe. You need winds of 58 or greater miles an hour, or you need a hail core of 1 inch in diameter or greater. Well, we've been telling you the hail core and the hail threat is really going to be the lowest confidence severe weather impact that we have throughout this system. Not to say that it can happen, and we have seen it happen in very minuscule amounts. However, the winds are going to be what classify these thunderstorms as severe or strong. And even though they're not severe, they're probably one level below that, which would be a special weather statement. And that's typically when thunderstorms have some wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour, or maybe 40 miles an hour if it's not quite as strong. So Ansley, speaking of the winds, it looks like you have that map pulled up right accordingly. I love how we're just kind of passing off and feeding off each other.
Yeah. So I'm just keeping my eye on this, because now in the National Weather Service chat, damage reports are beginning to roll in, mostly from the North Georgia area. So if you've kind of been watching with us for a while here, we were talking about an area that was warned for tornado warning earlier this morning, right near the McDonough area, but kind of this whole stretch of this line has been producing some really gusty winds, and it's had areas like this that have tried to rotate, tried to tighten up at times. And of course, it's still the only area that has a severe thunderstorm warning attached to it. So this has definitely been the most impactful portion of this line all morning long. And if we play it out here, I'll just kind of show you it's maintained some pretty gusty winds and as well some areas of rotation throughout this time. When we kind of had the tornado warnings earlier today, then that's where we also start to have some of these damage reports. So if I show you some of these counties that are on here, counties like, give me just 1 second. Counties like Newton, Rockdale, and Walton counties, which you can't quite see on the map, but this is Rockdale, this is Newton, and this is Walton counties. These three counties are reporting lots of trees down, lots of damage reports, lots of things like that. So damage in this area, and it's attached to the line that's been pushing through our northern counties as well. So over in Jasper County and in the northern tier of Monroe County, even in Pike and Lamar counties when this thing kind of spurred up and got started getting strong, that's where we could also have some damage reports rolling in here in the next few minutes as well. Remember, the wind speeds where you're seeing these orange values have been close from 60 to 70 miles per hour. So regardless of the fact that we don't have tornado warnings, the areas that did have a tornado warning and have been attached to this line have started to roll in with some damage reports. So that's just something important to note in terms of where we're watching with this line. Further towards the south, I will say, going back to my kind of imaginary drawings here, the National Weather Service has gone with what we call a special weather statement as opposed to another severe thunderstorm warning for the areas kind of south of where this severe thunderstorm warning exists. So where the line is rolling into kind of the rest of Monroe County, pushing into Jones and Bibb counties, over in Crawford County, exiting Taylor County into Macon County, now getting close to the Houston County line. That's where we have that special weather statement as opposed to the severe thunderstorm warning, which means the wind speeds here are still pretty strong. It's gusty, there's a lot of lightning, there's heavy rain, but it's just shy of reaching that threshold that they need to issue a severe thunderstorm warning. So that's what's going on. And then a lot of these individual little cells that have spurred up ahead of this, which are probably pretty strong as well, I'd say, Alex. We're seeing a lot of lightning with those, right? And a lot of heavy rainfall also. So probably seeing some impacts with those also. I'd say just generally for the next few hours, it'll probably be best to wait these out inside and avoid being on the roads as much as you possibly can. But that's kind of what I'm looking at right now in terms of what's going on big picture, where we're seeing damage reports at the moment. Definitely more up in North Georgia, but attached to that line that still has the severe thunderstorm warning rolling into Jasper County. So or northern part of Monroe County and into Jasper County probably just need to be on guard here for the next little bit with those just really high wind gusts, Alex, up to 70 miles per hour, they said in the National Weather Service chat.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the main risk that we have been outlining. Obviously, you typically worry about your things like a hail threat and a tornado threat when we do have severe weather here in central Georgia. However, it's not to take away from those straight line wind gusts because they can be very gusty. I mean, wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour, that's getting into high tropical storm status winds. That's even getting into flirting with Category 1 hurricane winds. So obviously not associated with each other whatsoever, just kind of giving you a reference of how gusty those winds are. So when we take a look at the radar, something else I was kind of looking at, obviously all of this has the same driving force. It's going to be that frontal boundary that's pushing everything through. But I'm wondering maybe if any of these cells that are really starting to fire up ahead of that main line, they could start to slow a little bit in motion, and this front could catch up to them and kind of start some clustering together of maybe some strong thunderstorms, and then that maybe could cause some intensification. But be thankful for these. They are doing a good job, and number one, working over the atmosphere in areas ahead of that main line. So all of these need something in order to sprout up, and they are definitely using some fuel to fire up some strong thunderstorms, some clusters of lightning, some heavy rainfall, and that will be using up some of that moisture and instability. However, they are looking fairly small in nature, pretty brief-lived, so they're probably not using up all of that instability, all of that moisture per se, but it is doing a little bit of help maybe, because obviously in areas down to the southwest, the general direction of where these little cells have been going, number one, they're starting to grow. I don't think I can call them little cells anymore, but down towards the southwest, you're not seeing any severe thunderstorm warnings. Obviously, there's still strong thunderstorms, but maybe doing just enough work to keep them below severe criteria it's still something that we're going to continue to reiterate, something you need to be inside for, because we have our fair share of gusty winds. Ansley's already reported maybe some gusts up to about 60 to 70 miles an hour that are just straight line wind gusts. So yes, they're not rotating, but they can still pack quite a punch. And now down here, moving out of Taylor County, kind of the northwestern quadrant of Macon County, getting close to the western edge of Peach County, even stretching up into areas up here near Roberta, and just east of Roberta, it looks like the general direction of where those heavy and dark color reds are. That is pretty heavy rainfall right there. Plenty of dark red within that. That's going to be some of the heaviest rainfall that you can receive. Obviously, looking at the scale up here, once you start to transition to the far right, that's where you get your frozen precipitation. But still, nonetheless, we are looking at a good cluster of this. The lightning isn't necessarily bunching up together, but I do imagine some gusty winds are embedded within that, along with heavy rainfall. And still, hearing those occasional rumbles of thunder. Right there, just seeing a lightning strike pop up to the south of Reynolds. So while it is a little more scattered in nature than our severe thunderstorm warnings up to the north, they are still strong thunderstorms nonetheless. And this heavy line of rain is continuing down to the south and the southwest. Like I said, we're going to continue to keep an eye out on what's going on to the southwest. And it still looks like we have plenty of these severe thunderstorm warnings. This tornado warning down here is continued through the maybe north of Dothan, just to the east of the Dothan area along this line of showers and storms. I think it's a little slower moving down to the southwest because this hasn't moved much over the last maybe 30, 45 minutes or so. But nonetheless, everything is still severe to the southwest of central Georgia, and eventually, given kind of the easterly, northeasterly direction, we could see some of these warnings extended into areas like Dooley County, Criss County, and Wilcox County. But right now, not of an immediate concern, more so probably over the next hour or two, we could be looking at that line to push through. So here's where everything stands as a whole. Let's take away the lightning, let's take away the sweeping radar, kind of look at what our warnings are looking like. So obviously not as much as what we were dealing with maybe about 45 minutes ago, as this was a little bit further to the west. One severe thunderstorm warning encompassing northern counties in central Georgia, and then down to the southwest we have these two severe thunderstorm warnings and a tornado warning. And right as I say that, a new severe thunderstorm warning box pops up, and it does look like this is mainly the eastern half of this original warning that we did get issued. So I imagine they'll expire or cancel the original warning and really just focus on areas in the right portion of this severe thunderstorm warning. So this will still go for the same counties that we have been outlining. Let's take it a little bit over here. Is this okay? This is on the right side of the screen. So Clark, Morgan, Newton, Walton, Clark, Morgan, Putnam, and Walton counties right here until 2:15, but obviously extending into our northern two counties, Jasper and Putnam counties. Eatonton falls within this polygon, getting really close to the Lake Oconee area. So now is the time to go ahead and make plans to get off the lake. If you're out on spring break enjoying a nice lake day with your family, you're probably going to hear those rumbles of thunder out in the distance, see those dark clouds. Not going to want to be outside while this heavy rain and these gusty winds are moving through. And speaking of the gusty winds, Ansley has a look at just how gusty they are. I'm continuing to see some of these yellows and oranges on there, and I mean, just giving you an idea about how strong those gusty straight line winds are associated with the system.
Yeah, and I pulled this back up just to say that in our National Weather Service chat, the emergency management teams in Jasper County and the Sheriff's Department have mentioned that there are reports of trees down in the Jasper County area. So we mentioned this earlier, but the straight line winds have just as much impact as the chance for some of those brief spin up tornadoes. We were seeing wind gusts in this area up to 75 miles per hour. So the straight line wind threat in Jasper County has been strong enough to take down some trees that they say have landed power lines down on a vehicle, and we started to get multiple calls of trees down in several other areas as well. So I'm talking about where you're seeing these bright yellow values here. That's where the wind threat is still the strongest. So now it's on the very eastern end of Jasper County heading into Putnam County. So they've gone ahead with this severe thunderstorm warning, and if you see yourself in the severe thunderstorm warning, specifically if you're in Putnam County, that's where I probably want you to be paying attention to the most, just because this area is where the winds are the gustiest, and that has seemed to cause some damage in terms of trees down, power lines down, things like that. So the the straight line wind threat right along the Jasper County, Putnam County border does seem to be substantial enough for some damage reports. Otherwise, things are a little bit calmer elsewhere. We're still seeing some of those bright reflectivity values down on the eastern side of Monroe County, but not quite as bad as what they were seeing on the northern side attached to this same line just a few minutes ago. So that's kind of what we're watching still, but like you said, Alex, that's the only severe thunderstorm warning at the moment, and I can see why they've gone ahead with that. I'd say kind of in our central Georgia area here, we seem to be just in between two of where the sections that they're flagging as the strongest sections. Down further towards the south, where you're seeing other severe thunderstorm warnings, is where there's a little more energy, and then just kind of in our northern tier is where there's enough energy for severe thunderstorm warnings. For the bulk of central Georgia, we seem to be kind of in a little bit of a lull in terms of our available energy for these storms.
Exactly right. And we still do have a lot of moisture and instability to really work with in our eastern corridor. So going to continue to keep a close eye on this throughout the rest of the afternoon. But real quick, we're going to hop off the stream and we're going to go on 13 WMAZ to do a brief 3 to 5 minute cut in, kind of just let people know what's going on and push them back here on the stream as we cover all these severe thunderstorm warnings with this line of strong and severe storms. So we'll be back here in just one moment. Well, a good Monday afternoon to you, Central Georgia. It is a messy Monday indeed. So we're continuing to watch this line of storms that we've been forecasting over the last week or so and continue to watch get closer and closer. Well, now it's moving through much of our northwestern half here in Central Georgia. Where things currently stand, you'll see a gap in severe thunderstorm warnings across most of our area. However, the two areas that we do see encompassed in a severe thunderstorm warning as of right now are going to be the eastern half of Jasper County, and it really looks like the heaviest rain and the gustiest winds are moving into the western half of Putnam County. So this is encompassing areas like Monticello, Eatonton, getting really close to the Lake Oconee corner of Putnam County. Stanfordville down in southwest Putnam County starting to see the heavier rain move in, and then we go a little bit more zoomed in. Phoenix, Georgia, White Plains, all of these areas around the Lake Oconee area are going to start to see the heaviest winds and the gustiest winds and the heaviest rain, So this severe thunderstorm warning is going to go until 2:15. So we still have another 14 minutes on this warning. And this is the kind of eastern portion of a warning that extended way back over into the rest of Jasper County, northern Monroe County, Butts County, and areas farther to the north. But that's the only active warning as it does stand right now here in central Georgia. We take it down the radar and still continuing to see heavy rain nonetheless, maybe not as much lightning starting to cluster together. It does look like it is scattering about, which is always a good sign of weakening, but not saying these storms are weak necessarily whatsoever. Plenty of dark red colors that you do see, heavy rainfall, and still our fair share of gusty winds going all the way through Jones County, just to the west of Gray. Gray starting to see some of the heavier and steadier rainfall. Northern Bibb County, it looks like almost the entirety of Monroe County is dealing with some form of heavy rain or a little bit lighter rain on the backside of this main line. Taking it down towards West Bibb, so Lake Wildwood, Lake Tobosoffke, seeing some pretty heavy showers around that area. Crawford County, seeing the heaviest rain leave towards the eastern portion of the county, just to the south of Roberta. And then really seeing the heaviest rain, I think, that I'm seeing with this entire line here in central Georgia, moving into Fort Valley here in Peach County and eventually Byron. And what's to the east of that, that would be Highway 96, Warner Robins, Centerville, Perry, everywhere in northern Houston County. And then also back around Marshallville, down towards Montezuma, everywhere in Macon County. And then up here in Taylor County's already seen the bulk of the punch, if you will. Still some steadier rainfall, still some scattered flashes of lightning. Of course, when thunder roars, you need to go indoors. That means lightning is close enough to strike you. And not saying that you can't see some flashes of lightning on the backside of this line. We're still continuing to see a couple of scattered white lightning icons over towards the west, areas that have seen the heaviest impacts. But now we go down to the bottom portion of this line of storms, and we do see severe thunderstorm warnings just to the southwest of us. And this warning is going all the way to the Lake Blackshear area on the western edge of Crisp County. This is something we're keeping a very close eye on, as these storms have a little bit of a northeasterly direction. So northeast of this polygon would be southwest central Georgia, south central Georgia, moving towards the I-75 corridor. All that to say, this is just a time that you want to be inside, especially areas that haven't seen the heaviest impacts so much. But we will continue to monitor this, whether it's severe or not, because obviously it's impacting your daily activities. It is spring break for many. So continue to stay updated with us here on 13 WMAZ, and specifically the stream on 13 WMAZ Plus. But it's a team effort here. I'm going to send it over to meteorologist Ansley Park, who has an update on some traffic and everything else with this system of storms.
Yeah, that's right. One of the main things we're talking about, and that we were talking about leading up to this, was the straight line wind threat. And we had some pretty high wind speeds coming through the northern Monroe County area earlier, which means rolling over kind of the High Falls area near I-75. And I now have a traffic report that all lanes are blocked on I-75 south at High Falls Road, due to some of the debris. This is exit one more time, my producer Megan's telling me. Exit 198 is where we're having that road closure. Some of the debris from some of this really high wind speeds that we're seeing, that is a part of this line up here that is now in Putnam County. So still seeing really high wind speeds where that severe thunderstorm warning does exist. And you just saw the polygon appear there. We do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued for Peach, Bibb, Houston, Wilkinson, parts of, Bibb, Houston, Peach, Wilkinson, parts of Twiggs, and Bleckley counties as well. So for the same reasons, likely that the wind speeds in this area are getting pretty gusty. So just noting, there has been damage reports due to some of these straight line winds. We've seen wind speeds 60 to 70 miles per hour throughout the afternoon here, and that will continue to be possible as this line continues to make its way across our central Georgia area. So that's going to be the biggest thing that we're watching here, and Alex and I are both continuing to track this line of storms over the next couple of hours here. That is going to be on our streaming device. You can do on 13 WMAZ Plus. If you don't know how to download it, you can text plus to the number that's on your screen, and you will receive a text message with exactly how to download the app. So we're going to continue our coverage right over there, and we'll see you there. Thank you for joining us.
All right, well, welcome back here at Central Georgia. We do have another polygon issued right now. A severe thunderstorm warning is in effect for areas that encompass Macon down to Warner Robins. So it does look like this polygon exists in Peach County, the easternmost tip of Crawford County, almost all of Bibb County, stretching over into Twiggs, Wilkinson, the northern portion of Bleckley County, and of course Houston County, encompassing Warner Robins, Perry, Centerville, Bon Air, all of those areas in northern Houston County. I drew a quick, rough sketch once again. This is kind of just taking how fast a certain section of this line is moving and kind of tracking it out to see which areas are going to be impacted next. So 207 coming up in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Here in Macon, we're going to start to see some heavy rain, and we're already starting to hear the rain beat a little bit harder on the ceiling of our station. Warner Robins going to expect to see the bulk of it around 217, 226 in Unadilla, and then 230 all the way up in Sparta, giving you an idea of areas to the northeast going to see impacts a little bit quicker than areas to the southwest. You just saw Macon go off that time frame because we are expecting the heaviest impacts in the downtown area here relatively shortly. 241 over into Irwinton in Wilkinson County, 243 Cochran, 256 in Sandersville, and then 1 minute before 3 all the way down into Dexter in Lawrence County. Once again, a rough sketch, give or take a couple minutes with this time, but it does look like it is pretty accurate considering we're getting close to 207. Actually, it's 209 on the clock, so the radar is not entirely accurate of the time, but already starting to hear the rain get a little bit steadier and heavier here in Macon. So let's take away this, and I'm going to go back to my moving tool on here, and let's zoom in on this radar picture. Let's see how long this warning is going to go. So until 2:45, we have about another 35 minutes or so on this severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued, and the heaviest impacts are remaining in this western edge of the polygon right now. So probably moving in towards the Byron area, really close to the I-75 corridor. If you had plans to maybe go out of town and you're planning on getting on Interstate 75 here shortly, make plans to wait this out first, and then you will be good to go on the roads. We have received many reports of all lanes being closed, some trees being down farther up to the north. So that's obviously something that you don't want to have to encounter. That is a little bit of a spring break bummer. So this will be pushing into the western edge of Houston County, Highway 96, Russell Parkway, Watson Boulevard, all these areas farther over to the west where those three main roads start to meet with the interstate. But taking it down a little bit further, Perry, Georgia National Fairgrounds. This is honestly giving me a good idea to pop up some sky cams in a minute, which I will do, but continuing in areas farther over to the east. Macon, probably our two most populous towns that we do have, are within this severe thunderstorm warning. And it looks like we just got another warning issued to the north of that one. So this is a very big warning, and only 4 of them pop up on here. So let's see if this is issued down here in the National Weather Service chat. I believe, okay, there it goes. So this one is going to go for Jones, Putnam, Baldwin, Warren, Wilkes, Greene, Tolliver, Morgan, and Hancock counties. So I know a lot of those aren't within the central Georgia viewing area. That's going to be areas to the northeast and the east of us, but it is encompassing our northeasternmost corridor, Jones County into Baldwin County, Hancock, and then the rest of Putnam County as this line of dark red does continue to push towards the east. This warning is going to go until 3 o'clock, so we have a little bit longer on this warning, which does make sense because it extends very far over to the west, even about 1 or 2 counties over to the east, excuse me. So that's something we'll keep an eye out for as well. And we had a brief, oh, I'm sorry, Ansley, go ahead.
I was just going to say, while you're on the topic of that specific warning, this is also where those damage reports have been rolling in from Jasper and Putnam counties. This is the area with the strongest wind speeds. We're still seeing wind gusts get up to 70 miles per hour in this area, and they were still really strong as they rolled over into Putnam County as well. So them continuing this severe thunderstorm warning is definitely something to pay attention to. If you see yourself in this yellow polygon, this is an area that you want to pay attention to because you can also just see with the shape that it's taking here. It's taking a little bit of a bowed appearance, which just means that it has the strength to have some really, really high wind speeds. And we've received reports of trees down, of power lines down, lots of damage in the Jasper and Putnam County areas. So heading into the Hancock and kind of northern tier of Baldwin County, that's just what you want to be paying attention to with this line. I'll take it back to Alex. I think you wanted to throw some sky cams and things like that up there.
And boy, do I have a sky cam image. Yes,
oh, wow.
Take a look at this shelf cloud, sort of, kind of, but still, this is going to be the leading edge, that heaviest bunch of rain that is going to be moving through, seeing some sporadic flashes of lightning out in the distance. Now, this is looking westbound on Cohen Walker Drive at CGTC. So this is down in Warner Robins, and you're getting a very ominous look when you look over to the west. Our fair share of heavy rain. This sky cam is going to be very interesting to watch probably over the next 5 to 10 minutes as the bulk of these impacts do come in. I imagine we're going to see our fair share of gusty winds that are going to make the sky cam sway a little bit, and obviously our fair share of rain droplets getting in the way of our sky cam lens as well. Also, let's take it back over to Macon real quick because I do believe we're already starting to see some impacts here. So yes, this is giving you kind of a real world image of what it does look like outside. Obviously, many of you have windows and you can kind of see what is going on outside. try to stay away from those windows just with how gusty things are, and it can start to make things fly in the air, acting as debris, especially with 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts like we've already seen indicated on the radar. And really hearing this pick up in real time here at the station. I don't think any of you can hear it, but we're definitely hearing the heavy rain start to beat on the ceiling of the station. So like I said, give or take a couple minutes in that rough timing I did just give you a couple minutes ago, and now feels like we're going to have the heaviest impacts in the downtown Macon area. And obviously not much visibility when you look out towards the west. Let's see if we can move this around a little bit. Maybe if we point the camera in a different direction, maybe it'll be more susceptible to kind of being blown around by the wind, giving us a better idea of what's going on. But obviously, looking at the downtown skyline, you can see that it is a very fuzzy image, almost not even able to see a couple blocks down the road right now. Some of our taller buildings in downtown Macon, the visibility is definitely very limited with this, giving you an idea right here, because this definitely does look worse in person than it does for us on our Skycam lens. And just continuing to watch them kind of fade out in the distance right there. So very heavy rain, gusty winds moving into Macon. Not necessarily the gusty winds right now, but if you look very closely down here, this is what we always try to look at on these sky cams to try to find some indication of raining. And obviously you don't really need one with how heavy it is right now, but seeing a little bit of how diagonal the direction of that rain is, giving you an idea of some of the wind gusts that are making this rain virtually kind of a left to right rain. Now, one more image I want to take a look at. Obviously, we just showed you down in Warner Robins, and it looks like the rain has already made its appearance down in Perry. Yes.
There is a tornado warning coming our way for South Bibb County, heading towards the Macon Regional Airport. So I'll talk about that. I think I see it right here, and I was just about to flag Alex and talk about this. This area of rotation that you can see with kind of a bright reflectivity value right here, just south of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So this is north of Byron, north of Centerville. This is going to be the area of rotation right there. And I'll show you also on the base velocity here. I checked the wind speeds just a minute ago, and it was wind speed 75 miles per hour. So they are going to issue a tornado warning for this. It does show a significant sign of rotation, enough for them to go ahead with that warning. The good news is I don't see a value of debris lining up with this at the moment, but if you are in the direction, and we'll kind of get an idea of exactly which way this is heading here. I also want to note, and I was paying attention to this too just a minute ago, they're talking about the area just kind of south of that, heading towards Warner Robins, showing signs of rotation here as well. So this one that's just over the Centerville area also is showing some signs of rotation. But in terms of the tornado warning, that is actually going to be this area here just south of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So let me go a little more locally. I'll talk about exactly where this is heading. Rolling right now over State Route 129. Let me put my glasses on so I can read. Rolling over State Route 129, heading towards the direction of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport, also rolling towards US Highway 41. And then big picture where this entire tornado warning extends to is going to be the Robins Air Force Base, Huber, Fitzpatrick, and just north of the Bullard area. So I do think we need to go onto the air for this.
Yes, I think we definitely do. This is a tornado warned storm. This doesn't necessarily mean a tornado has touched down, but we're seeing indications of that rotation. Once again, where you start to see some of the darker colors get really close to these light colors, especially the blue that we do have here in northern Houston County and the very southern edge of Bibb County. So if I can get someone in my ear telling me if we're good to go on air real quick.
I just reached out to producers and we're waiting for the okay.
Okay, so we're going to continue to talk about it. If we're ready to go on air, someone beat me in my ear, and we'll pause for just a second. Okay, we're holding on for just a second, but we'll continue to talk about this. Some of the areas just around this center of circulation, if you will. Obviously, these two areas, these light blue areas, are going to be where we're monitoring this. So near Etchiconee, up here in the northern tip of Houston County, but also encompassing areas to the east of Centerville, so just north of the Watson Boulevard area. This is obviously getting pretty close to the Robins Air Force Base area. Within this polygon, Highway 129, 247, all of these areas in eastern downtown Warner Robins. All right, we're going to head on the air with this tornado warning here really quickly. Tornado warning issued for Bibb, Houston, Peach, and Twiggs. Right now, the two areas that we are monitoring for possible circulation are going to be northern Houston County, where you see this first big cluster of the light and dark blues, and then this bottom one right here, which doesn't look to be necessarily as strong, but it is still moving at a pretty good clip. The downtown Warner Robins area, so getting right there around Northside High School, maybe just to the north of it, and then it's going to continue its eastern push, Robins Air Force Base right here. So all of you that I did just include in that tornado warning, make sure you're going into your tornado safe space. Again, this isn't necessarily on the ground. It is a tornado warned storm where we are seeing circulation approaching the 247 corridor, Alberta Road, all around Northside High School, continuing its eastern push over towards the Robins Air Force Base area. That is the southern area of that possible rotation. The more impressive one is to the north. So right now, kind of seeing this notch inward. So this is indicating wind starting to rotate, not necessarily going straight across, as opposed to this light blue color kind of coming towards my body. This is indicating kind of a spin right there, just around Middle Georgia Regional Airport. This will be in South Bibb County right now, just above the county line of Houston County. But Ansley was mentioning to me that we have seen some form of a correlation coefficient drop. So we continue to look at these. As you see, potential lofted debris, it's the same thing as that correlation coefficient. When you start to see colors that are a little abnormal in nature, that's indicating non-meteorological elements that are floating in the sky a little bit higher up. So we are seeing maybe some clusters of some different colors right here, some yellows. This could be indicating possible debris. But again, we haven't received confirmation of a confirmed tornado necessarily on the ground. But this rotation is definitely probably some of the more significant rotation we have seen over the course of this afternoon. So right now, these two areas, if you live in northern Houston County, South Bibb County, around Middle Georgia Regional Airport, CFCA, and then getting over into areas of Twiggs County, Huber, kind of next in line in the western edge of Twiggs County, just go ahead and head to your tornado safe space. And that's going to be an interior-most room. Make sure you're away from windows, because regardless if this is a confirmed tornado or not, these are still some very gusty straight line winds at the very least. But we are seeing some possible indications of rotation. This tornado warning going until 2:45. We may see this expire before we get to that time frame, but treat it as it is going to go for the full duration of this warning, about another 25 minutes or so. Ansley looks to have some more information with that. It looks like we just saw a trim back on that tornado warning. What do you have for us, Ansley?
Yeah, well, I just want to give some perspective, right? Because we're talking about a tornado warning that's been issued for Bibb County and for Houston County into Twiggs County. So taking you big picture just for a second here to show you exactly what areas we're talking about. We're talking south of the Macon area. So if you're in Bibb County and you're in Macon, we're not talking about you. This is also south of the Rutland area as well. So the very southern tier of Bibb County, just to the north of the Warner Robins area, heading into kind of where these three counties meet here, and then just pushing further into Twiggs County here. I do also want to note there are two specific areas of rotation, which Alex did mention, and he's also been mentioning that this area here seems to be the stronger one that's just south of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport, rolling over US Highway 129 into Twiggs County. So that's heading towards the Huber area here next. That's going to be the area of kind of next impact where this rotation is rolling over. We talked a little bit about that drop in correlation coefficient, which means there's some signature in the air showing that it's maybe not meteorological elements. Sometimes this can indicate that there's an area of hail, but because I'm not seeing an area of hail on our hail parameter here, I do just want to note that that does mean there could be some debris in the air, not maybe necessarily just because of the rotation, but also because the wind speeds associated with this have been up to about 75 miles per hour throughout the day. So just kind of taking you big picture and giving you that perspective. I will say I'm a little encouraged with these most recent scans here. You can see when we were south of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport, a little bit tighter, what Alex was mentioning there, some of this notch where it was looking more like it was turning inward, now maybe seeming to separate just a touch. So still strong and still showing signs of rotation, but that is an encouraging sign when the rotation does kind of start to spread out like that just a little bit. So we'll keep our eye on this for the next few minutes here, but I will say I am encouraged by that most recent scan.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It is always encouraging to see the rotation start to thin out or broaden out, and that is what we are seeing. And something else I want to note, you see how heavy the rain is around here. Middle Georgia Regional Airport, the northernmost tip of Houston County, and even areas down towards Watson Boulevard and Robins Air Force Base 247. Whatever is in there, you're not going to be able to see. So number one, you should definitely not be trying to go outside to see if you can spot some possible rotation. What you should be doing if you are within this polygon, even extending over into Twiggs County, the I-16 corridor, we'll touch on some local areas here in just a second. You definitely need to understand that this is rain wrap, whatever it is. There's this very, very heavy rain associated with this. We luckily didn't see any hail. That would just add a little more insult to the injury with possible rotation. But nonetheless, we are treating it like it is a tornado-warned storm. Just get into the interior-most room that you do have in your house away from any windows until this warning is allowed to expire. And this will be fairly quick moving. That is the theme we have seen with these storms throughout today. They have been very quick movers across the entirety of central Georgia. Maybe only got it started about an hour and a half ago and already pushing into the central-most area of central Georgia. So let's take it over towards the east, some areas that are next in line with this possible rotation, and then we'll take a look at what's in store. So Highway 23, obviously a big commute route for folks down towards the south of Macon, all the way up to Macon, but Huber going to start to see this leading edge of heavy rain and those strong gusty straight line winds move through in the western edge of Twiggs County. Eventually, the I-16 corridor is going to be impacted, so if you were planning on heading out the door, coming up to Macon, going down to Dublin, avoid going on that route for about 30 or 45 minutes or so until this does pass. This is not something you want to drive through. The guidance we've been giving all day is just stay inside. Just allow for this storm to ride out, be in the safety of your home. This is something that's going to really limit your visibility on the roads. And if a hail core is to pop up, the last thing you want is little small ice pellets starting to pelt your windshield, maybe cracking your windshield. So just something that really is not suitable to be outside for. And okay, I was right in the middle of that warning. I was wondering if it was allowed to expire, but it is still in place. Areas continuing in the easternmost edge of this tornado warning include Ripley, it looks like US Highway 80, just to the east, kind of northeast of I-16. Fitzpatrick also falls within this tornado warning. You get over to Georgia Highway 18 on the very rightmost edge of this tornado warning, and then this is clipping areas of downtown Jeffersonville. So all those areas I just mentioned, like we were continuing to say, tornado safe space, interior most room, still not anything that has been confirmed on the ground. I haven't checked the chat in just a minute, but it does look like we're continuing to receive guidance that this rotation is continuing to weaken as it moves into Twiggs and the swampy areas east of the Ocmulgee River. That's going to be just behind Robins Air Force Base. Let's go back to that velocity parameter and see what we can see in terms of this possible rotation. Let's go to the storm relative velocity. And it looks like, I don't know.
Got some weird coloring going on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the coloring. It was just blue a second ago, but still, obviously, when you see the differentiating colors, that's what you really need to look out for. You're starting to see this dividing line right here as we get closer and closer to the Jeffersonville radar. The greens, obviously, going to be moving towards the radar. So you see up here on the scale, when you get these green winds over here, they're moving towards the radar over here behind me. However, these red winds are moving away from the radar, and they're not necessarily too bright red necessarily in nature, where we start to get kinks and kind of think of it like you're reeling out a hose and then, oh, it gets caught up a little bit. Those kinks, there's notches. That's where you're seeing differing winds starting to dominate one way or another. The best way to describe it is really a paper towel holder. You get a roll of paper towels, you roll the top half this way, you roll the bottom half this way, and what happens? That roll starts to spin, and that's what we're looking at in terms of circulation right here. But we are indicating some weakening right now, and it does look like this tornado warning has been trimmed back to now just Twiggs County. So the bulk of this is moving out of northern Houston County, southern Bibb County, to the east of Middle Georgia Regional Airport, east of Robins Air Force Base. Still our fair share of heavy rain and some gusty winds on the backside of this, and some occasional flashes of lightning, but the rotation does seem to be weakening. Still areas like Huber, everywhere in western Twiggs County, even around the Bullard area, Highway 23 coming up to Macon, or down through Twiggs County towards areas like Bleckley County, Dodge County. Highway 16, want to avoid traveling on there as of right now until this warning is allowed to expire, and the heaviest impacts, even still, whether this is a tornado warned storm or not, do move past the I-16 corridor. Fitzpatrick, Marion, and getting really close to the downtown Jeffersonville area. Definitely go ahead and exercise the caution. It's better to be safe than sorry with the tornado warned storm, but it is good to see the signs of weakening and nothing confirmed on the ground by the National Weather Service. But we will continue to monitor this until this warning is allowed to expire, along with all the other severe thunderstorm warnings we have been looking at over the recent hour or so. Ansley has a little bit of a better picture on the velocity map. Don't quite know what was going on with me. We're going to take it over there to her graphic.
Yeah, I think we've had that issue in the past where sometimes our radar seems to glitch out for a scan or two, but we're back to the regular coloring here. So what I want to do is play this out for you from the beginning, because it's been encouraging in terms of how it's rolled across and actually showed some encouraging signs of weakening. Obviously now Bibb and Houston counties have been taken out of this. So the south of Rutland, north of Warner Robins area that was originally within the warning has since been moved out. But let's take it from the beginning when this warning was issued. So it started to show some weak signs of rotation just north of Byron, and then started to tighten up a little bit more. And you can see those values getting a little bit brighter. If I kind of show you here, what Alex was talking about and doing a great job of mentioning was where it was starting to turn. So that kind of area there was where we were flagging some of the rotation just south of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport. But since then, and I'll turn this off for you, we have seen it just kind of expand in size and then also just kind of separate from itself as well. So taking it out a few more scans, ignoring that red scan where our coloring seemed to have gone out, we're not seeing much of that tight rotation anymore, and definitely not seeing any more of kind of that area where the two winds were seeming to turn in to one another. What we're still seeing is a bright blue velocity value, which means the wind speeds there are still pretty gusty. So you're going to want to stay in your tornado safe place until this expires, because nonetheless, the wind speeds in this region are still kind of up to around 75 miles per hour or greater, as well as these lines have kind of had the chance to spin back up in the next few scans as well. So these have been very touch and go tornado warnings. We've had moments where they've spun up and then moments where they seem to have just picked back up. That's what this is as well, and I think that's probably also why they're holding on to the tornado warning for Twiggs County as well, just making sure that it doesn't start to tighten up again either. And I do see we have a severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued with this entire line that this tornado warning is embedded in. So I'll take you over to the reflectivity so you can see exactly what that is. So that also means that the wind speeds outside of the tornado warning, but still all for Twiggs County heading into Wilkinson and kind of in the northern part of Bleckley County here, and just clipping the eastern end of Houston County. The wind speeds in this area are high enough for them to issue a severe thunderstorm warning, which means they are 60 miles per hour or potentially greater, and we've seen higher wind speeds than that all throughout the day today. But that is our only tornado warning. We do have one more severe thunderstorm warning that exists further towards the north for the line that is exiting Putnam County, heading into Hancock County here in kind of the northern part of Baldwin County. So you're probably hearing some lightning, or hearing some thunder, seeing some lightning, hearing some heavy rain as well. But in terms of active warnings, it's just the two severe thunderstorm warnings, and then of course this area of rotation that we're monitoring into Twiggs County as well, right, Alex?
Yes, exactly right. And going off that, mentioning the winds, obviously it's great to see the rotation kind of broadening, kind of weakening, but not to take away from how gusty the winds are. So you're taking a look at those velocity numbers right there, not the gate-to-gate shear. That's going to be how the winds are changing as they go higher up in the atmosphere. Still 69 and 70 miles per hour. Obviously the negative is just really due to the direction that the wind is blowing, and this is a little bit higher up than surface level. So I do believe the winds aren't quite that gusty. However, to continue to see straight line winds reported of this magnitude obviously does pose quite a punch. However, the way I've kind of been putting in reference over the course of our stream about the last hour, hour and a half, that's getting into pretty strong tropical storm force winds within the threshold of about 70 miles per hour. And these are the occasional gusts. They're not blowing constantly at 60 to 70 miles per hour. So that occasional gust, obviously, it won't last too long, but it is still good enough to pick up things, make them start flying as debris, and along with that, something that you definitely do not want to be on the roads for. That is enough to make maybe you push over into lanes on I-16 on all these roads. So like I said, continue to stay off the roads in this tornado warning that we do have. I took the warning box away. I believe we still do have it. Yes, we haven't seen anything necessarily of that. Let me erase all these and take a broader view real quick. It does look like we did just receive word from the National Weather Service. The rotation in twigs is weakening and will likely let the warning expire at about 2:45 unless rotation does increase. And we are getting reports that Robins Air Force Base does not have power. I imagine many other areas on the northern side of Houston County, the Centerville area, are virtually the same. So now we see this new tornado warning issued right here. This is within the box of the current tornado warning in Twiggs County. Again, this box will be allowed to expire. They're probably just being better safe than sorry as we're continuing to see that rotation broaden, that rotation weaken. However, it has already had impacts, knocked out the power at Robins Air Force Base. The extent of that we're still trying to kind of figure out right now, but this is moving into western Twiggs County, and obviously the next area within this polygon from this point of view is going to be Jefferson, right around our radar. So once we get closer and closer to Jeffersonville, the imagery is going to get a little fuzzy the closer and closer that we do get to that actual radar. This is still worth noting. It is very broad. We need to see this a little bit tighter together, a little bit smaller, but we still definitely see this shade of some light blue indicating those winds up to about 60 miles an hour at times. We just got a new scan right there. And like I said, as we get closer and closer, you're going to see kind of this area of nothing whatsoever. And this is just going to be because we're so close to the radar, we can't necessarily get a good depiction of what is looking like on the radar. So kind of unfortunate location of this. However, it is a good indication that we're still seeing signs of weakening. We've seen guidance from the National Weather Service as such. So 2:45 is where this tornado warning will go on to. It is 2:34 coming up on 2:35 right now. So about another 10 minutes, give or take, with this tornado warned storm. Right in the middle, kind of the northern portion of this severe thunderstorm warning, and this is still giving you an idea of how severe those winds are and how gusty they are, and they can be damaging. So right now, only reports of power out at Robins Air Force Base. Areas farther down Watson Boulevard, maybe getting down Green Street. We did see that signature kind of pop up just around Northside High School, but also in South Bibb, and we kind of saw those centers of circulation merge together a little bit in South Bibb and in northern Houston County, and that's probably what's contributing to it being a little bit broad right now as it treks into Twiggs County. It does look like it has passed the I-16 corridor, but not giving you the all clear to go on that just yet because we still do have plenty of heavy rain and gusty winds, just not necessarily the gustiest and the heaviest rain that we do see with this main line trekking through. So once again, 2:45 is where this tornado warning will go on to. And is that a severe thunderstorm warning?
Yeah, that is them trimming off Jones and I believe parts of Putnam and Baldwin counties from the severe thunderstorm warning that is up here further towards our north. So that is where we had a lot of high wind speeds, and we did have reports of damage, power lines down, trees down, and those wind gusts in that area were up to 75 miles per hour. So really gusty straight line winds up towards our northern tier there. So they're continuing the warning for Hancock County, but that should be the last county in our viewing area, a part of that strong area of wind speeds in our viewing area there. Again, the only other severe thunderstorm warning that still exists is the one down here towards Twiggs County that contains our tornado warning. But positive signs, because earlier we were kind of able to see some really strong areas of wind speeds just by taking a look at our base velocity. There was a lot of areas that were just putting out really strong values, and you could see them right on the map. The values were really bright and they were just kind of jumping out as attention grabbers where the wind speeds were really high. When I kind of take a look at base velocity now, I'm definitely not seeing that quite as much towards Hancock County here towards Sparta. So the wind speeds still strong enough for severe thunderstorm warnings, but maybe not quite as gusty as what we were seeing earlier. And then really the only other value that stands out to me is where we already have our tornado warning in Twiggs County, and not because it's rotating, but it stands out to me just because it's a little bright, which means that the wind speeds are still pretty strong. But I'm very encouraged by what we see now in terms of actual rotation for this tornado warning. Definitely feeling confident they'll be able to let this go at 2:45, if not earlier, if it doesn't try to tighten up anymore before that. So good news for our tornado warning, and generally positive news elsewhere in the sense that we don't have a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings, and hopefully the wind speeds up towards Hancock County can kind of continue to die down over the next few scans or so. So generally just kind of talking about some gusty thunderstorms across our entire area. You're still seeing a lot of lightning strikes as well. And we're just waiting for this line to kind of keep pushing through. The good news is after you're behind kind of the initial part of this front here, you are in the all clear for severe weather. So if we kind of want to talk about areas that are kind of already sitting under the all clear, we're just talking about areas that are going to be west of this line here. So if you have already had this front blow through your area, you're in our western half here, even here in downtown Macon, even in Warner Robins and Perry, you're in the all clear. You may still hear some lightning strikes. You may still have some rainfall behind where this front came through, but the actual initial threat for severe weather is ahead of this line, again, where those severe thunderstorm warnings are still spurring up and where we're still just holding on to our tornado warning for Twiggs County. Everybody else out here towards the west is in the all clear. We're just going to have to keep tracking with this thing as it continues to push towards the east here, and everybody else that is east of this line will just kind of need to be on guard for the rest of the afternoon here. I don't know if we have any update from the National Weather Service, Alex?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Obviously, they're indicating that this is moving kind of directly over our Jeffersonville radar right here. So we're hoping that it doesn't down that, because then that takes away a lot of our utensils as we're monitoring these storms. But right now we are indicating at least some weakening with the rotation potentially, but the straight line wind gusts are still pretty substantial, probably somewhere between the 55 and 60 mile an hour range. But there are some road closures and some damage reports I do want to give right now. In Crawford County, we have State Route 7 South at Oak Grove Road. All lanes are blocked. I imagine something like power lines or trees have been down there. We gave you a traffic alert earlier. Tree limbs on I-75 southbound and the exit close to High Falls Road. That's County Route 277. They have closed all lanes there. And our most recent report that we did just get, the power is out at Robins Air Force Base and many other areas, probably on the northern side of Houston County, somewhere around Watson Boulevard. So obviously only do this when it is safe to do so. After that heaviest line has moved through you, those areas that Ansley did just give the all clear to, you guys can get out and do this. But be sure to please text photos and damage reports safely to 478-752-1309. That's the number you see here on your screen. Again, only when it is safe to do so. Emphasis on the safely right there on that graphic. We would love to get a better picture about what's going on damage wise, power outage wise, as we continue to monitor these storms with some straight line winds that are really packing a punch, right, Ansley?
Yeah.
I mean, gusty winds up to 60, 70 miles an hour we've seen indicated on the radar.
I was just about to say this. They are going to go ahead and carry on with the tornado warning east of Jeffersonville, just because the National Weather Service says that the rotation is somewhat weak, but it's still kind of tight. So they're still monitoring that area. The reason we may not be able to pick up on that quite as much is just because of what Alex just said. It's rolling right over our radar. So getting an exact picture of what the rotation looks like right now is a little bit difficult just because it's so close to that radar. And like Alex said, I really hope that it just rolls right on over the radar and does not cause any issues with that, because that would certainly be an issue for us here. But let's talk about where they've extended this to now. So that does include Jeffersonville still, but now extends well into Wilkinson County as well. So that includes areas in between Irwinton and Nicholsville, and kind of extends all the way into about the eastern end, of Wilkinson County. So town names within there is really mostly just Irwinton, Toomsboro, and then it's north of Nicholsville, not quite including, but just north of there. So that would mean this area of rotation would be rolling over next, looking like US Highway 80, heading towards Georgia State Route 18, crossing over into Wilkinson County, rolling over Georgia State Route 96, and then heading towards US Highway 441, kind of in the area all the way on the end of this polygon. If it does kind of continue all the way to the end of the warning, would be Georgia State Route 112 south of Toomsboro. So that's for this new warning. They do say again that the area that they've been monitoring is an area of weak rotation, but tight enough that they want to stick with this tornado warning. So we're going to keep tracking with this here for the next few minutes, hoping we can just get past our radar soon, Alex, because I really would like this thing to roll over there, causing no issues to our radar. Yes, exactly right. And some of you may be wondering, why can't we see everything directly over the radar? Well, exactly what you're seeing on this picture right here. The radar scans out. It doesn't scan necessarily straight up. So that's why we have a blind spot right there in that circle around Jeffersonville where the radar is.
So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on this, not seeing any complications as of right now with our radar, but the tornado warning being extended is the biggest thing right now. And like Ansley just said, going until 3:15, this extension of the tornado warning. And you can see that right now, probably where the possible rotation is really just right here around Jeffersonville, somewhere within the radar threshold. And this is going to continue to move through the Jeffersonville area into that southern portion of Wilkinson County. Obviously, areas just on the edge of this box, Irwinton and Nicholsville, go ahead and take those proper precautions to be in your tornado safe space. We have not received any reports that this is a confirmed tornado on the ground, but it is better to be safe than sorry when issuing these tornado warned storms, because we are seeing some form of deferring winds causing some form of circulation, whether that's higher up or whether that's going all the way down towards the ground. And going off of that, you see how heavy the rain still is around here. So like I said, this is going to be rain wrapped, whatever this possible rotation is going to be, unless it's on the very leading edge of this line, which I think it could be, but obviously don't go out and try to get a glimpse of it. It's not safe to do that, number one, and number two, you're probably not going to get a good glimpse of it with all the rain that is still crowding the picture associated with this. So right now around Jeffersonville and moving over into the southern extent along Highway 96 into Wilkinson County, you guys need to be making sure that you're in your tornado safe space, riding this out. And then after this main line does pass you, like Ansley and I have been saying, you will be in the all clear. Take a look at how light the precipitation gets after this main line associated with the severe thunderstorm warnings, the tornado warnings. Many areas in the western extent of downtown Warner Robins, Centerville, closer to I-75, you're looking to be in the all clear now. You still have some rain that can wrap around. It's going to be on the backside of this. It's not going to be as heavy in nature. You still may hear a rumble of thunder or two, but the winds are definitely not going to be as gusty. Let's take it back over to the base velocity, see if we can get any better indication of what's going on here around the radar. Like I said, just a very unfortunate location right here. We'll take away the warnings and then we'll click some of these boxes, trying to get an idea of how fast the velocity is. So good to see, 48 miles an hour maybe. And once again, this is going to be a little bit higher up than surface level, but the wind gusts can get up to maybe 58 to 60 miles per hour winds. And we have seen that indicated because this entire section of the storm is within a severe thunderstorm warning. So the threshold that you do need for winds in a severe thunderstorm warning are going to be 58 plus mile an hour winds, or obviously a hail core of maybe an inch in diameter or greater. The hail threat has not been that big. We've seen some reports of penny-sized and pea-sized hail. Nothing really substantial, so the winds are going to be what's driving these severe thunderstorms as they do trek farther to the east. So this tornado warning, I haven't gotten a glimpse of the new one. I kind of want to see what speed it is moving at right there. And Ansley, I did just look at that picture you did just send, and it looks like Ansley was sending in a photo in the National Weather Service. We definitely can see an indication of some rotating clouds from a viewer in South Bibb County. So obviously that rotation was definitely there. Whether or not it made it to the ground or not is still what we're kind of trying to determine, but we haven't received too many damage reports, at least that I'm getting word of right now.
I do have a list that I can go through those damage reports as well. We have several power outages. I'm just receiving some information from our newsroom. In Monroe County, we have 2,165 power outages. Peach County, 1,954. Houston County, 2,301. Crawford County, nearly 300. Putnam County, 722, and Lamar County, 326. As well as I'm seeing some information from our newsroom about reports of trees down in Houston County near kind of the Warner Robins area, and several more reports of trees down kind of in that area where we're talking about where we have that tornado warning. So regardless of if it's a confirmed tornado or not, it's definitely capable of causing some damage. I also saw when they warned this tornado warning for a second time, they did mention there is an area of hail about up to an inch in diameter. So regardless of if it's on the ground or not, certainly capable of taking down some trees. So we're going to treat it as such for the next little while.
Yes, exactly. And we did just get another beep here. I wonder if that is a severe thunderstorm warning. I'm not seeing anything indicated down here. It might have been the tornado warning that they originally issued being allowed to expire. I'm not seeing any updates to these severe thunderstorm boxes. We still have the tornado warning that they did issue. This was the new one from Twiggs over into Wilkinson, but the original one that started in northern Houston, southern Bibb County, and moved over into western Twiggs County that has been allowed to expire. Again, those areas that we were talking about earlier, when we first saw that rotation, it looks like you are in not necessarily the all clear, because you do have plenty of lightning that has struck a couple minutes ago or is continuing to strike on the ground, but the heaviest impacts are gone from there. And worth noting, obviously, with all the trees and the power lines that we continue to get reports of being down, if you do encounter those while you are out and about, be sure you turn around. You're not trying to drive through those. You go ahead. There are plenty of roads out there. You can find another way to get where you're going. It will not be wise to drive over live power lines, any trees that are blocking the road, and make sure that you report those to the proper officials so we can get those cleaned up as quick as possible, get those routes opened back up. So I did hear another beep, and I think that was this warning up here, correct?
Yeah,
this northeasternmost warning up in Sparta and Hancock County.
They may have extended as well our severe thunderstorm warning that includes our tornado warning to include kind of Johnson, Dublin, all those areas as well. It maybe looks like they just shifted it a little bit further, so it now includes what looks to be kind of the west end, or excuse me, the southern end of Washington County, Johnson, most of Lawrence County, into kind of the northern tier of Dodge County, as well as Pulaski and most of Bleckley County as well. So it looks like they may have extended that just a touch, likely due to the wind speeds in this area and, of course, the tornado warning that we still have in that region. So what I'm hoping, Alex, is that maybe that area of rotation has kind of rolled over the radar. Maybe we might be able to get a better picture of it here in the next couple of minutes. I do see that the actual initial line does look like it did.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big telltale if we're going to continue to see this warning go the full duration of when it is issued. Again, going until 3:15. It's about to be 2:50, so about another 25 minutes or so on this warning. And that possible rotation, it's really hard to tell right here around the radar, but I do believe maybe somewhere to the east, or yeah, possibly east right here. I think it's on the bottom half of this red polygon that you do see just to the east of where this Jeffersonville label is, and continuing to track into southern Wilkinson County. So I would think Nicholsville probably going to be closer to this potential rotation rather than Irwinton. It does look like it's going towards the bottom half of this red box that you do see. And once again, impacts are stretching far beyond this red box within this severe thunderstorm warning and some gusty winds. I wish we could give you an idea of how specifically fast those gusty winds are getting, but once again, a little bit of a gap right here as this possible circulation, the bulk of all of this rain, these gusty straight line winds is moving over the Jeffersonville radar. After it does move through, pending we don't have any damage, fingers crossed, that is going to get a better image as we go on the eastern side of this radar. So let's take a big picture view about what's going on in an entirety. Obviously, widespread active weather right now here in central Georgia. A severe thunderstorm warning for the eastern half of Hancock County, just around the Sparta area. A little bit of a gap right here just to the east of Milledgeville. And again, just because you don't have a severe thunderstorm warning doesn't mean that these thunderstorms aren't strong. They still have their fair share of gusty winds. They're just below the threshold to be considered severe. We've seen plenty of special weather statements, which is a step below what a severe thunderstorm warning is, just meaning that, okay, maybe your wind gusts are only up to 50 miles per hour. Maybe you don't have as much of a hail signature. So it is still good enough to do some damage. Plenty of lightning there as well. I did just see another warning box pop up. That's out of our viewing area. It's going to be to the east of Warrenton towards the Augusta area. So I-20 is an area that you definitely want to avoid right now until the bulk of all this does move through. And something else now that I'm noticing, all of this ahead, these started out as tiny little rain cells. It's starting to get a little bit heavier in nature, but starting to see them cluster together. Our fair share of lightning associated with this. So this is ahead of that main line for areas further over to the east. However, hopefully it is beneficial in areas in our far eastern corridor that it did use up a little bit of that fuel, that moisture, that instability. So maybe the weather won't be necessarily of severe criteria as the storms do push farther east. But this box is extending into the eastern half of central Georgia, so we're still going to treat it and we're still going to cover it while these warnings do exist. So this big severe thunderstorm warning, this is going to encompass Twiggs County all the way down to the northern half of Pulaski, and then that's also including Bleckley County, the northern edge of Dodge County, Lawrence County, Johnson, and then getting into southern Washington County. And within that, right there around Wilkinson County and Twiggs County is where we're continuing to try to keep an eye on possible rotation for a tornado warned portion of the storm just south of Irwinton, moving to the east, northeast of I-16 near the Nicholsville area. And then this line of strong storms still does exist down in Dooley County, southern Pulaski County, around the Cordele area, getting into the Lake Blackshear area, where another severe thunderstorm warning to the southwest of us does pick up. And that is more than likely going to continue probably in our southernmost counties. So obviously our fair share of areas that haven't seen any of this active weather yet, but we're now getting into the southeastern quadrant, which is kind of going along with what our time frame said, the 3 to 5 window for our far southeastern counties, 1 to 3 for our northwestern half. So now as we come up on the 3 o'clock hour, that looks to be coming to fruition for areas like Dublin, Eastman, McRae, Soperton, Vidalia, over into Wrightsville, Abbeville, down in Wilcox County, Rochelle, and probably parts of Hawkinsville, maybe even getting into Cochrane as well. It looks like the heaviest rain is moving through that area. So Ansley, do you have a better look at what's going on to the east of Jeffersonville? It's a little bit of a gap. So.
Yeah, and I have good news as well. The National Weather Service just let us know that they will be canceling this tornado warning. So they're probably just kind of waiting for this to roll over the radar so they could get a pretty accurate scan of what the rotation looks like now. And it seems like with what they've got now, they're able to drop this warning. So that'll be coming in the next few minutes. If you are Irwinton and kind of in between Irwinton and Nicholsville and you were in that tornado warning, you can go ahead and kind of be in the all clear in terms of the tornado warning. Now I will say this line is still going to roll over those regions and still probably have some gusty winds with it as well. So still keeping your guard up for the next little bit here while this line comes over you, but just knowing that there is no more indicated rotation within this line while it does that. Now, while I'm here, I also do have some reports of damage at the moment as well. So what you're looking at on your screen right now is a tree down on Montrose Lane in Centerville. So definitely seeing some damage in that area where we did have the warning. This is Pelmore Drive in Warner Robins. A trampoline was blown over kind of into the home, if you can see it just behind the tree there. So continue to send us some damage reports. Of course, once it's safe, if you are in the Houston County area, you are kind of now out of the line. So if you're stepping outside now and seeing some damage around your home or maybe in the surrounding areas, feel free to snap a photo or just send some information to our newsroom. You can call, text, or email the number on your screen right there, 478-752-1309, and we can kind of get a picture of what this line has done as it's rolled through. Now, important to mention, we're still holding on to the severe thunderstorm warning as we head into kind of the eastern counties here. So this line will be rolling over into Lawrence County here in the next few minutes. But again, no more warned storms. So I believe we may stick with the stream here for the next few minutes. Sorry, I was just waiting for confirmation from producers there. But since there are no active tornado warnings, we are going to continue this coverage on our stream. That is on 13 WMAZ+. Alex and I are just going to stick with this line all afternoon long until all counties here in central Georgia are in the all clear. So feel free to hop over to that platform and continue streaming with us there, and we will continue with the coverage of these severe thunderstorm warnings as it rolls over into our eastern counties. We'll see you back there in just a few minutes. All right, well, welcome back. We are continuing the coverage of this line of strong storms that's been pushing through central Georgia kind of all afternoon here. We did just have a tornado warning that was issued for parts of Houston, Bibb, and Twiggs County that has since expired, and now we're just sitting with a couple severe thunderstorm warnings as we were earlier today. So let's talk about what still exists here at the moment. We have really kind of three, mainly two, severe thunderstorm warnings that kind of take over most of our area here. On our northern tier, we have a severe thunderstorm warning that really mainly exists only for Hancock County and then counties to the east of it. So Warren County, if you may be watching us from that area. The good news is for folks in Hancock County, this line is basically making its way out of there. So they'll probably be able to drop Hancock County in the next few minutes. Now it's kind of rolling into the northern part of Washington County here. And Washington County is kind of sandwiched in between these two warnings here, so may still be a little bit gusty in Washington County and definitely rainy. with some lightning strikes as well, but not sure if they're actually under severe criteria. Then further down towards the south, we have a severe thunderstorm warning that exists for Wilkinson, down into Bleckley, northern part of Pulaski, into Dodge, Lawrence, Johnson, and the rest of Washington County here. So this is the one that actually did have our tornado warning that extended from kind of roughly this South Bibb, northern Houston region all the way into basically kind of the end of Twiggs County, and then they picked up the tornado warning one more time and extended it into Wilkinson County. So this line right here still has some really gusty winds, but luckily is no longer showing signs of rotation, but the wind speeds kind of all the way down to the northern tier of Pulaski County are still really gusty. If they're holding on to the severe thunderstorm warning, that means they're at least 60 miles per hour or greater. Then down further towards the rest of our counties here, our southern tier over in Crisp, Dooley, and Wilcox counties, not under a severe thunderstorm warning, but again, sandwiched kind of in between two here. So still very gusty nonetheless, probably just shy of 60 miles per hour. I'd say probably about 50 miles per hour plus in this area with a lot of lightning and some heavy rain. So that's a little bit of a breakdown of what we're seeing now. Luckily, no more active tornado warnings, but of course, we're going to keep watching this line as it sweeps across, because right, Alex, we've seen a couple of these just start to spin up every now and then they kind of pick back up. So that's what we're watching kind of for the rest of the afternoon, right?
Exactly. I would say the theme with this overall line of storms moving through is can't let your guard down, because obviously we have a little bit of a lull in some warnings and then 3 pop up out of nowhere, including a tornado warning. So we're still going to remain very diligent to this radar over the course of probably the next 2.5 hours. We're really approaching 3 o'clock, which is kind of that halfway point that we were thinking. Obviously, this line really going to exit in its entirety closer to the 6 p.m. hour is what we're thinking. But number one, I drew a line about which areas I do believe are kind of in the all clear. Obviously, I want to say that if you do hear thunder, stay indoors. That means you're still close enough that there are lightning strikes around. You do not want to be outside for that. But once you start to kind of hear those rumbles of thunder get farther off in the distance, still really not the best to be outside, but I do believe everyone with the heaviest impacts is going to be to the left side of this line I drew. So I apologize for the bad handwriting right there. It's a little hard to draw with our tools here on the radar, but areas farther back to the west and the northwest. So Macon, Warner Robins, Perry, over into Macon County, Montezuma, Marshallville, Butler, Roberta, over in Taylor and Crawford counties. Thomaston, honestly, seeing the rain leave in its entirety. Monroe County, Forsyth, Lamar, Pike, Spalding counties. Butts County still seeing a few light showers. Up into Jasper County, Monticello and Eatonton, still some steady showers there, maybe a sporadic flash of lightning or two. However, the heaviest rain has moved out of those areas, and it looks like Milledgeville approaching that all clear status. Gray also up here in Jones County, and then Jeffersonville. Around there in Twiggs County where our radar is, even getting into areas it will be approaching, or the heaviest is moving through Bleckley County, Pulaski County, and still down in Dooley County and Crisp County. So giving you an idea, it's not necessarily a straight line all across central Georgia. It definitely has its wobbles, indicating some areas are moving faster and some stronger storms, some gustier winds than other portions of this line. And that's what we're seeing. Severe thunderstorm warning right here. Maybe not quite as strong right here, but picking back up as we go south of central Georgia. Nonetheless, whether it's strong, whether it's a severe thunderstorm, it is definitely going to be wise to be sure to stay inside. And a piece of good news, power is back at Robins Air Force Base. So obviously many people out there working right in the middle of the workday. Good to have the power back on there. And the biggest piece of advice we can give you from the damage reports and the lane closures we have seen, don't try to drive through any power lines or any branches on the roads. If it is really blocking your way down a road, don't try to drive off the side of the road, maybe into a ditch or such, and get yourself stuck in some wet mud per se. Just make sure you turn around, find another way to go and get where you're going. It's going to be better safe than sorry. And obviously don't want to be driving over things like live power lines or any sharp objects that could be within tree branches, maybe that you don't see, that could pop one of your tires or so. But I did just peek out of the corner of my eye. Ansel, you have quite an ominous picture there on the sky cam right
Yeah,
there.
it is. We just got some new cameras at our station here, and we just replaced all the old ones. So I think the coloring is a lot more impressive. Just take a look at that. This is the sky cam in Dublin. So this is where the line is about to kind of roll over next. We saw the severe thunderstorm warning be extended for Lawrence County, and just take a look at that. definitely an ominous sight. If you were with us earlier, Alex did a great Skycam shot of the Perry Skycam, kind of a similar scene when the line was coming through. So it comes through with a punch. We know that. It's been doing that all afternoon. So it's going to look a little bit frightening while it does that. But the good news is it's just time. It's a little bit of a warning as it's time to make your way inside. We still got a little bit before this is in the Dublin area, but it's kind of crossing over into the Lawrence County area here soon. So likely seeing some impacts here in the next couple of minutes or so. So hopefully all those folks that are out on the roads are taking this as their sign to start heading inside, because as we saw, this has definitely, regardless of having tornado warnings or not, had some straight line winds that have certainly packed a punch. I just almost am a little bit lost for words looking at this. It's just a really crazy sight. Wow. So yeah, let's flip over to the radar just so you can see, if you are in Dublin and where we're checking in from, where exactly the line is about to be. Yeah, so close to the Dublin area, just probably a few minutes before they actually do start seeing impacts, rolling kind of into the Dublin area now. So, all right, I'm getting word from our producer, Megan, that we are actually going to switch back over to the air. So give us just 1 second and we're going to hop on air. All right, welcome back. We are still watching this line of showers and storms roll over the central Georgia area. We really have one severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued, but meteorologist Alex Pry is here as well, and he was just telling me that the National Weather Service has their eye on a specific area. Alex, you got more information about that?
Haven't had it highlighted necessarily by the National Weather Service, but it is this same tornado warned storm that we were keeping an eye on earlier. It's obviously nothing terribly impressive, but we are seeing maybe some indication of a push in right here, where you start to see this dark red just to the east of Nicholsville. This will be along the same tornado warned storm that was back into Houston County, South Bibb, trekked through Twiggs County, and now going through the easternmost portion of Wilkinson County, may clip areas of northern Lawrence County and then eventually into Johnson County. Again, this is still a severe thunderstorm warning, but something we're continuing to keep an eye on is possible spin-up rotation, and we haven't seen any reports of a confirmed tornado on the ground. However, we've received a fair amount of damage reports, a fair amount of lane closures, still showing you the impact that the straight line wind gusts can have. They can get very, very gusty, even upwards to about 60 to 70 miles per hour is what we've seen at times with some of these severe thunderstorms. So right now, looking at the reflectivity, this is showing you the rainfall rate. So the darker red that you get, that's going to be your heavier rainfall. You start to transition into oranges, eventually yellows and greens. It's going to be lighter rainfall in nature, and not necessarily seeing a kink per se, a kink or an inflow indicating possible rotation on this. However, it's something we'll continue to keep an eye on. Nonetheless, this is a strong and severe thunderstorm warning, and it goes for a wide amount of counties. So I will say many areas on the left side of this polygon are definitely more so in the all clear after this heaviest band of rain does move through, but still areas to the east would encompass the southern portion of Washington County. So Sandersville still going to see strong or severe thunderstorm impacts, even though they're not necessarily in this polygon. And there we go. So we got a severe thunderstorm warning that is kind of merging the two together that we've had to the south of us and the one here in central Georgia. This is going to go for crisp portions of Dooley, southern Pulaski County, all of Wilcox County, looks like the entirety or the southern 2/3 of Dodge County, and extending into southern Lawrence County. So all of these areas outlined within these yellow polygons are going to be in severe thunderstorm warnings currently. This latest one will go for 40 more minutes until we get to 3:45. The one currently to the north of it going just 15 minutes earlier, and then we're going to reevaluate what it is doing. But we're still seeing straight line wind gusts, and we're still seeing our fair share of scattered lightning, but heavy rainfall and the straight line wind gusts have been the main thing that we have been keeping an eye on, along with that possible rotation, but not necessarily seeing anything definitive right now. It does look very broad if anything is happening right there, but obviously that was the cell that was tornado warned. Did it touch down a tornado? We're still trying to figure that out, and we may not find that out for a couple of days. Nonetheless, the straight line winds are still packing quite the punch, downing power lines, downing trees, and I'm going to continue to reiterate it. If you do come across any downed power lines or any tree branches, be sure that you are turning around, finding a detour to wherever you need to go. But number one, you should not be driving out in this strong and severe thunderstorms. Right now, it does look like the heaviest rain moving close to the Sandersville area, probably right through Sandersville. It would probably be easier if I popped up the live radar image. So it doesn't look necessarily like a definitive line up here, hopefully a sign of some weakening. We did see some cells that started to pop up and really strengthen in nature that are now over to the east, just around Louisville and Rennes over in Jefferson County. That kind of used up a lot of the fuel that we did have in northern Washington County around Sandersville, but the heaviest rain moving into the western edge of Washington County, southern Washington County, Tynnell, other areas in southern Washington County, Wrightsville still yet to see the heaviest rain and the gustiest winds. Downtown Dublin, we have a good sky cam shot of that, some of the ominous clouds moving in that I'm going to pan to Ansley Parker right after I go through these specific areas. Dexter, Cadwell starting to see the rain pick up, maybe hear a rumble of thunder or two. Eastman, really just seeing some scattered heavy showers, some scattered storms right now, but the heaviest line still does remain just to the east of Cochrane, stretching down southeast of Hawkinsville, southern Pulaski County, taking it down to Pineview in northern Wilcox County, so Abbeville and Rochelle will be the next to see that heaviest line of rain. And one more county to mention that just got included in the severe thunderstorm warning, Cordele. The heaviest rain and lots of lightning right now, some gusty winds passing through downtown Cordele, crossing I-75 and then moving out of the eastern portion of the county into kind of the southwest corner of Wilcox County, and then another severe thunderstorm warning down to the south and southwest of us, Americus, Leesburg, getting down I-75 to areas like Ashburn and eventually Fitzgerald right outside the Polygon. But I did mention the ominous looking clouds. We're really getting close to seeing that heaviest rain move into the downtown Dublin corridor. Ansley Parker, what's it looking like?
Yeah, just pretty ominous. I think that you used the right word there. It's definitely a dark scene heading into downtown Dublin. Now, this is just what the leading edge of that front looks like. It's very impressive as it comes across, and you can see that it's got a shelf cloud, which is what you're seeing there, the distinction between kind of the dark gray background in the sky and then the cloud you can see, which is just because of how much lift there is for this storm to kind of be up in the air there. So that's the cloud that you're looking at, and behind it is lots and lots of rainfall that will be rolling over Dublin here in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to sit on this just a few minutes longer while I talk to see if we can catch a couple of these lightning strikes that have been happening as well, because it's been pretty bright all day long. We've had a very, very good amount of lightning this afternoon. And definitely some gusty winds as well. So this is a severe thunderstorm that's rolling into the Dublin area here. So if you do happen to be out on the roads, I see a couple folks maybe trying to make it back home before this thing starts dumping a bunch of rain. It is going to bring some pretty gusty winds and then probably dump a good amount of rainfall. Something we actually haven't checked on a ton today is the rainfall totals. We're probably looking at a pretty impressive amount in a couple of spots combined with the rainfall that we saw yesterday, and you can kind of see it starting to fall behind the shelf cloud there. That is just fascinating. Yeah, you can see maybe the distinction of where the rain's falling. I don't know if I can use my pointer on here. I don't think I can. But yeah, you can kind of see it just in the distance there. And other than that, it's just the dark clouds kind of rolling in. This is probably what it looks like in the Dodge County area as well, maybe even kind of into Pulaski County as the storm just makes its way towards us. It really hasn't dropped in strength a ton as it's pushed into our eastern counties and our southeastern counties here. It's just kind of held on to us all afternoon long, but luckily once the initial part of the line is through, you are in the all clear in terms of severe weather. You may continue to have some rainfall. You may also continue to see some lightning or hear some rumbles of thunder, but the actual initial threat for those really strong gusty winds, and then of course watching for any areas that might start to rotate, that ends after the initial part of the line is over. So hopefully we're coming to the end of this here in the next few hours or so. Everybody just kind of has to make it through this little bit of line here, and then we'll be starting to see much better conditions for the rest of the day and into the start of April as well. But that's the scene in downtown Dublin. I'll keep my eye on it, Alex, and we'll probably start seeing some rain and seeing some lightning here in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, you did mention a good thing, something we haven't touched on as much is really the rainfall totals, because we weren't really looking at a flash flood risk because of how quick this system will move through. Yes, it has some very heavy pockets of rain, and you'll see that some areas that have seen heavy shower, heavy thunderstorm train over the same area over and over again, well, they've gotten up to maybe about an inch or two of rain. I think the highest total that we do see is down in Macon County around the Montezuma and Oglethorpe areas, around 2.2 inches of rain. However, most of central Georgia so far has fallen within this blue, whether it's a light blue or a dark blue color, that's still going to be below the inch threshold. Only about 0.2 inches of rain in Roberta and Crawford County, half an inch up in Jasper County around Monticello. But however, you start to get these green dots or yellow dots, 2.3 inches of rain just to the northeast of Milledgeville. I think that's right there on the lake. So all that water falling into the lake. 1.7 down in Twiggs, Warner Robins, where we saw that tornado warning, a lot of heavy rain around it as well, 1.1 inches of rain. And then up here in Bibb County, we see kind of polka dots of green, so some pockets of seeing 1 to 2 inches of rain in some certain areas. Areas farther to the southeast, they have been left out of it so far, but that's where we're continuing to monitor this line of storms pushing through in our far southeastern corner. We were saying areas up to the northwest, you're going to see the impacts first and over to the west as well. And this is going to continue down a southeastern path, really very similar to the direction of I-16 heading from Macon all the way down towards Savannah. But thankfully we haven't received a bulk of rain, even upwards to about 4 or 5 inches like they have just outside of Lumpkin, in between Lumpkin and Ellaville over to the west of Americus. We haven't seen any flash flood warnings sprouted here in the state of Georgia. That has been the case in areas farther over to the west. And this rain is very good because it is going to wash away all of that pesky pollen. However, the severe weather is something that we never want to pair up with that pollen cleanse. So right now, as it currently stands, still 2 severe thunderstorm warnings here in central Georgia. We'll take a brief glimpse at that. Let me take away the watch boxes and the satellite because it gets really, really messy. So those 2 severe thunderstorm warnings encompassing many of our eastern and our southern counties right now. I will take it back to Ansley here in a second. Actually, I can pop it up myself if we still have it on the Dublin Skycam. Just really wanted to get a good image of this system moving through. So yes, still a spooky image. Many of these folks out and about on the roads. I imagine trying to venture home. If you are out and about on the roads or planning on heading out in downtown Dublin, I would ask, number one, that you refrain from doing so. Just be inside as this heaviest band of rain and the gustiest winds do move through. However, if it does get too gusty and the visibility gets really limited from that heavy rainfall and those downpours, definitely pull over, make sure you're under some form of covering as this does pass through. It's going to be a pretty quick mover, maybe about 15 to 20 minutes to take for the bulk of the impacts to get through. And then after that, you will deal with some lighter showers, maybe a couple of scattered flashes of lightning, but a pretty spooky image coming out of downtown Dublin right now. It looks like the rain should get going within the next 3 to 5 minutes, I would say, right here.
Yeah.
This shelf cloud really booking it towards the sky cam that we do have right now. But Ansley, I'm going to take it back to you, giving people an idea of how gusty those winds are exactly moving into the downtown corridor in Lawrence County.
Yeah, definitely. I've just been keeping my eye on this all day because in preparation for this line, let's see. I think that was them trimming off a severe thunderstorm warning for what looks like Twiggs County. Yeah,
it looks like the same storm that we're looking at moving into downtown Dublin.
Okay.
They trimmed off some counties to the west.
Okay, so good news in terms of the beep. Nobody else being issued into a warning, just people being taken out. But something we've been watching all day long, right, or in preparation of this line, was gusty and damaging winds. That was the main thing that we were paying attention to. Of course, we had the threat for a couple of spin-up tornadoes, and that is something that we saw earlier with the tornado warning that we had in South Bibb and North Houston and Twiggs County. But the damaging winds was the threat that we were paying attention to the most. So when you kind of look at base velocity like this, it gives you a good depiction of where the wind speeds are the highest based on which values are kind of popping out to you the most. So you can see that on your own at home here. The area that's popping out the most is this red area, so into the Lawrence County area, even in the northern end of Dodge County here, and kind of heading into Johnson and Washington counties. That's where the wind speeds are the strongest and kind of the most grouped together, meaning that they're probably the most kind of gusty in that area, specifically heading towards Dublin. So it'll be interesting if we will be able to see some of those street lights shaking around and things here in the next couple of minutes. The flash you're seeing there is them making an update to the warning. So they're really keeping it tight on who's in and who's out. It's really just ahead of this leading line. I think they're probably going to drop this one that's behind it. It's this that they're paying attention to there. But something I want to mention with us talking about wind speeds, something that was happening to us earlier is something that's going on further towards the north. And there's so much lightning with this storm. Let me just flip that off. You can see further towards the north, heading towards Augusta. With this severe thunderstorm warning, it's got a much more bowed appearance. So the wind speeds up here are probably a lot stronger. You can see these areas of dark purples as well, really heavy rain and probably some hail in there as well. We're dealing with a little bit less bowing down here, which means the wind speeds are probably just a touch lower, which is good news for us because earlier we did have some areas that were bowing, and areas that were bowing also were trying to spin up some rotation as well. So it does still look like we have like a little bit of high wind speeds down here, but luckily not really seeing that bowing shape that we're seeing further towards the north. So that is some positive news in terms of the wind speeds, but generally wind speeds still high enough to reach kind of that severe thunderstorm threshold here. And I'd say the highest area is probably heading into Lawrence County. Alex, you got some information over there?
Yes, I do. So we have some video coming in. I believe it is off Hawkinsville Road in South Bibb of a tree being removed. If we can pop that up on the screen. Yes, right here.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, do not do this unless you are trained to do so. You know what you're doing, but obviously great to see people coming together to remove all the debris right there. Be sure we're contacting proper officials and such to get any of these trees removed. However, it does look like a pretty good group effort right there. And those folks, obviously a big thank you to them, and taking a look at how far traffic is backed up. So this is going to be in Macon-Bibb County. Hawkinsville Road, I imagine, is on the southern extent of Bibb County, and that's kind of one of those areas that we were monitoring some tight rotation with that tornado warned storm. So that is good to see people coming together, like I said, but make sure that you're being very extra cautious. You know what you're doing in order to do that. Don't go up there and try to think that you're stronger than what the tree does weigh and get a little deadlift workout and pull it off the road. Obviously, be sure to contact the proper officials and be sure to take the proper precautions when removing debris and such like that. It is better safe than sorry to just make a call and then just turn around and obviously find a different way to go somewhere. But shout out to those people down there in Hawkinsville Road for getting that tree out of the way, freeing up some traffic. And we probably still have our fair share of some trees being down, even possibly knocking over some power lines associated with these gusty straight line winds. Again, all that does remain that Ansley was just mentioning are these 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, but areas like Abbeville, Eastman, Cadwell, now downtown Dublin probably starting to see a little bit of the rain. Wrightsville over to Soperton, Alamo, McRae, Vidalia, and all areas in those counties I did just outline. So even still a little bit up here in the southeastern corner of Washington County, the heaviest rain moving out of Sandersville over towards the east near Louisville, and then getting over into Jefferson County out of our viewing area. Taking a look at what's going on behind this main line of rain, this heavy rainfall, these gusty winds that are associated with the reds and all the lightning flashes that you do see. Just some residual rainfall, maybe steady at times, maybe a little bit heavy. However, it's not going to have any severe weather implications. That still lies within this main line, that leading edge of all of this precipitation moving through central Georgia. So we do see some steady rainfall coming back into Warner Robins, still not going to be anything severe in nature. Just be thankful for it. It's going to be an extra bucket of water to wash away any of that pollen that somehow still remains standing after all of the heavy rain that did pass through already. But Ansley has a good shot at the Dublin Skycam. We said we've been keeping a close eye on that. It does look like it's starting to get a little bit messy and some gusty winds there, right, Ansley?
Yeah, I'm starting to see the rain come down now, and I was trying to kind of zoom in and get maybe an object or a tree or the street lights to see if we could see kind of what the wind gusts are doing in that area at the moment. You can see the Skycam itself shaking around, and you can actually see now on our awesome new camera the direction that the rain is blowing. So yeah, it looks like probably the heavier winds are beginning to move in with this front here. And oh, we have a wind chill viper on here now too. Let me clear off and see if that helps out at all. So there we go. Yeah, so you can start to see it now. Some of those trees are blowing around, and then some of the banners as well in downtown Dublin. A few people still out on the roads, and I would say with the heavy rain and eventually some of this wind and potentially some hail in the area, this could definitely impact visibility on the roads. So you see people really slowing down. Previously, when we had the line come through about 2 weeks ago, I remember we saw a lot of heavy rainfall accumulation right on the road there where people are driving through, right through that main intersection. So the rain can come down very quickly and pack a lot onto the roads very quickly as well. You can see the puddle starting to stir up with that UPS truck there. So definitely, if you are stuck on the roads while this thing is rolling over, doing what these very smart people are doing here and just taking it really, really slow, something that we emphasize a lot is turning around when you see a puddle that you're not really quite sure just how deep it is, because that is when we kind of bring in flooding implications there. We always say turn around, don't drown. You never want to drive into a puddle that you just can't tell the depth of, because it can be much, much deeper than you were anticipating. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb while we're watching these cars drive around here, maybe even just pulling over and waiting it out for a few minutes if you feel like you really can't see or there's just a lot of rain coming down. But in terms of the wind, Alex, honestly, I'm not seeing a ton at the moment, so maybe a little bit positive in terms of how much things are getting gusty in Dublin at the moment.
Yes, exactly right. And kind of those initial cells that we were talking about, I didn't know if they were going to play too much of a factor, but obviously this is still a severe thunderstorm. Just because we don't see the gusts in downtown Dublin per se doesn't mean they're not taking place just a mile or two down the road, where you're getting those really gusty winds 50 to 60 miles per hour. So a rough timeline for almost the rest of central Georgia. Not quite out of the woods just yet, but as we will be approaching the 5 p.m. hour, that's when we're really going to look at conditions to start clearing up. The heaviest rain, the gustiest winds, all of the lightning amongst that initial line, that leading edge. Here's kind of the timeline for cities that have yet to see those impacts so far. 326, Dodge County and Eastman, that's when you can expect the arrival of that heavy band of rain. 330 around Abbeville and Wilcox County, getting up into Adrian, just to the southeast of Johnson County over in Emmanuel County. That will be around 341. 349 taking its way to Soperton in Trutland County. 358 in McRae and Telfair County. Swainsboro just 1 minute before 4 at 359. Twin City around 413, and then Mount Vernon, that's going to be down towards Montgomery County. That will be around 414. So the good news with this, and the best takeaway that I'm seeing right now, just given the motion of this line of storms as a whole, it does look like maybe we could be looking at an earlier exit than what we were originally thinking. That weather impact alert going until 6 p.m., the severe thunderstorm watch even going until 7 p.m. So obviously I don't think anyone would really have a complaint about this system moving out a little bit earlier than expected. And we might even get a couple glimpses of a beautiful sunset per se, but obviously don't want to jinx that. And we want to continue to keep you updated with these strong and severe storms as they do continue to roll through. But that's kind of a rough timeline that we're going to continue to draw as this system does move now into our eastern counties, our far southern counties, and our southeastern counties. So kind of everywhere in between, everywhere you see to the right of that red line of rain, really thick down there in Cordele, or just between Cordele and Abbeville, approaching the Abbeville area, probably pretty prominent in areas like Pineview, getting into Rochelle and Wilcox County, and a little more broken, maybe not a definitive line through Lawrence County. However, our fair share of lightning that just continues to pop up far and wide across this system. And once again, the two severe thunderstorm warnings that we do have, let me take it to this tool right here. We'll zoom in. For Dodge, Johnson, Lawrence, and Washington, that are outlined in the banner at least right here. So Dodge, Lawrence, Johnson. Okay, so that does cover all four of the counties. Perfect right there. This will go for another 5 minutes. This is going until 3:30. Time right now 3:25. So we'll either see this expire, we'll see this extended. I do imagine we'll probably see this extended for some gusty winds, but maybe they've gone below the threshold needed for a severe thunderstorm warning. Still a strong thunderstorm that is not necessarily severe criteria, but just below, it's kind of flirting with that number of 58 miles per hour, is still going to pack quite a punch, as we've seen in other areas. Even reported wind gusts to 50 miles an hour in northern Houston County. That's done some damage and even knocked out the power for a brief period at Robins Air Force Base. And then the southernmost severe thunderstorm warning, at least here in central Georgia, not in its entirety. You see another one down to the south of us along the I-75 corridor for Chris, Dodge, Pulaski, and Wilcox. This one does look like spanning a couple more counties. Dooley County is within this yellow polygon. However, it does look like the heaviest rain has moved out of Dooley County now. The eastern edge of Crisp, much of Wilcox County right now, and then you're seeing areas of southeastern Pulaski County still dealing with the heavy rain and the gusty winds. The northern half of Dodge County really approaching that Eastman area. We were saying somewhere around, I think 326, 327 is when Eastman would start to see the heaviest rain. Well, It's about to be 327 and really close to the downtown Eastman corridor. And then this will go for the entirety of southern Dodge County and this notch right here in Dodge County, stretching into the southern corner of Lawrence County. And it looks like, just as I was saying with the warning up to the north, we have seen an extension over towards the east. So let's see if I can get this polygon in here. You'll see Emmanuel, Jefferson, Johnson, and Trutland counties, along with the eastern half of Lawrence County. So East Dublin probably still seeing some heavy rain, hearing those random rumbles of thunder as well. And this continuing to push eastward out of the central Georgia viewing area, but other areas just around us, encompassing like Swainsboro, getting to Adrian, around that corner of southern Johnson County and western Emmanuel County. This new warning is going to go until 4:15, so a little less than an hour on that severe thunderstorm warning, which does make sense because the heaviest impacts are just now entering the left side of this box. Still have a little bit of a ways to travel until it gets to the end of this yellow polygon, but we will probably see this original severe thunderstorm warning back over here that encompasses downtown Dublin, Dexter, Dudley, and Cadwell. That will be allowed to expire, I do imagine, around 3:30, and then continuing to keep our eyes to the south on that other warning as well. Ansley, as a look at the winds, have we seen any notches very recently like we were looking at with the tornado warning storm in Houston and Bibb and Twiggs?
No notches, and I'm actually coming to check in with good news. I know if you were with us early this morning, or maybe you just kind of been watching this thing roll across all day long, we had really strong straight line winds earlier today in northern Monroe County and heading in to Jasper County, as well as kind of southern Butts County. We were seeing wind speeds up to 75 miles per hour, so really strong and really gusty, and we got some damage reports from those areas as well. What we see now is still enough to maintain that severe thunderstorm warning threshold, so we're still seeing some gusty winds and likely some straight line winds as well, but just not quite as bad as what we were seeing earlier. So actually I will try to kind of take this out back, if it will let me go as far back as earlier today. Let me see if I can get it back just a couple scans. So earlier, yeah, there we go. Where you started to see some of these yellow values, we're talking about northern Monroe, southern Butts, and kind of western Jasper. That's where we were seeing those really strong straight line winds, and just take a look at how it progressed. Just even got more and more impressive as it rolled into our northern counties here. Really strong and really gusty. But as we've kind of progressed throughout the afternoon here and kind of just the progression of the storm further towards the east, we haven't quite seen those values pop up just as much. Now you may notice a little bit here as this line has creeped into the eastern part of Lawrence County. Some of the brighter red values are returning, so that may be why they went ahead and issued the severe thunderstorm warning further towards the east for Johnson, Trutland, and maybe even, did that extend down into Montgomery County as well? Let me flip this back on. No, so just for Trutland and for Johnson County, it's just because those wind speeds still probably enough to maintain the threshold there, but not quite as bad as what we were seeing earlier. So hopefully at least the straight line wind threat from what we saw earlier is just a little bit lower. Nonetheless, it's still pretty gusty like we saw in Dublin, and I can check back in there one more time. But I just want to come on here with a little bit of encouragement. We'll take any positive signs as they come through. And as I've been keeping my eye on this Dublin Skycam, honestly, not a ton in terms of the wind, so that's good. I've seen a lot of lightning, and if you can kind of see as cars roll through here, I've seen a lot of accumulation of rainfall on the roads pretty quickly. So again, we don't encourage driving through the afternoon here, but yeah, take a look at that car making its way through the puddles. So just taking things slow out on the roads for the rest of the day. Rainfall is going to be a big thing for the rest of the afternoon. I think a lot of areas saw close to an inch of rain, and areas that had heavy rain yesterday, like our southern counties, probably tacking on rainfall totals even higher than that at this point. So just being careful on the roads. Of course, we always say turn around, don't drown. Just don't get into some of those heavier puddles without knowing how deep they are. But that's just a picture of things and a little bit of an encouraging sign in terms of what we're seeing on the wind speeds outside right now.
Absolutely, and another encouraging thing on the Skycam is the stoplights are still working.
Yeah.
So good indication that the power is still working in downtown Dublin. The heaviest does look to be exiting towards the east. There you go, 3:30 now on the clock, and you saw that initial severe thunderstorm warning that did encompass downtown Dublin has been allowed to expire, but I still imagine areas of East Dublin are still seeing the heaviest rain and hearing the heaviest rain hitting against their windows, hitting against their roof, so still continue to remain inside. I think the good all clear is going to be once you can't hear those rumbles of thunder anymore, because obviously still our fair share of scattered lightning back behind this main line, and that's something you don't want to be outside for. Definitely not safe to do so. But obviously if you are having travel plans, maybe heading into the night shift that you do have for work or heading out of work, we are getting close to the end of the workday, which is hard to believe. But many people on spring breaks may be heading out of town today. I hope you did wait a little bit or got going earlier this morning before we started to get all of these storms. But areas farther back to the west, the northwest here in central Georgia, really kind of just to the left of this line my hand just drew. So Cochran, Unadilla, Vienna, all these areas, Pulaski County, Bleckley County, up into Wilkinson County, kind of the western half of Washington County, still a little iffy right here with all these lightning strikes. I would say all you guys over towards the west and the northwest, the severe weather threat is over for you guys, so you are in the all clear. Just still express a little bit of caution on those puddled roadways, on any downed trees and power lines that you could encounter like we just saw the video of in South Bibb. But if you're heading out of town or anything and you're traveling west, you should look good to go. Traveling west is going to be your best option. It's a flip-flop from this morning. I was telling you not to drive west over the course of this morning. However, now that the system has passed through, you are going to be allowed to travel west in some areas. So we're going to continue to keep you updated on any of these trees that are being downed. I'm continuing to watch the National Weather Service chat. The EMA director in Washington County, Russell Reiner, did just say a tree down across Highway 272 at Panther Branch Road in Washington County. So if you live near Panther Branch Road, that's one of your typical evening commute routes. Definitely want to go ahead and make a contingency plan in order to heading home. And we're still seeing our fair share of heavy rain and a good amount of lightning up just south of Sandersville, around Tynnell, and getting into other areas in southeastern Washington County. So the heaviest stuff probably moving into Wrightsville now. East Dublin is what we were looking at. It is 3:33. Sometimes my radar is a little bit slow to update. Let's see if I can click out of it real quick and get a little bit of a refresher. And then I'm gonna have to take away the watch boxes and all the cloud cover so you can actually see what's going on. It's not just a cluster of every watch and warning that we do have available. Watch box away, playing it out live, 3:32. It does look like, yes, going further and farther east of Dublin, the I-16 corridor. And if you're evening commute home, maybe going back to Savannah, areas out of central Georgia, you definitely don't want to be traveling down I-16 for the next couple of hours because your car is going to be traveling faster than this system is moving through. Even though it is moving at a good clip, obviously you're going to run into these heavy showers and gusty winds at some point down the road if you are going all the way down I-16. So I would advise maybe waiting another hour, maybe hour and a half before getting on the road as these storms do push out of central Georgia now. So it does remain these two severe thunderstorm warnings that you see highlighted in the yellow polygons, Johnson County, Washington County, down to East Lawrence, Southern Lawrence, and then Treutlen County around the Soperton area, Dodge County seeing the heaviest band of rain move into the Eastman area, down into Wilcox County, rain almost covering the entirety of Wilcox County, Pineview, Rochelle, and down to Abbeville. And then Cordele still within the threshold of this severe thunderstorm warning, which does make sense because there's a good amount of lightning on the map down in Cordele. So Ainsley, as I look at these rainfall totals, honestly, they've exceeded my expectations a little bit, but those have been in locally heavy areas that have seen thunderstorm after thunderstorm, and that can happen with just about each and every weather system. Yeah, that's true. And we got a lot of rain yesterday, and more honestly than I was expecting to see. Some of it kind of just trained over the same areas, especially in our southern counties. You can see that for Crisp and kind of Dooley as well. Definitely higher totals further towards our south, just kind of to the west of Americus and south of Americus as well. They saw some higher totals, but at least for us here in central Georgia, a few areas that did get some pretty impressive. Okay, well, that's not what I was trying to click. Let me clear that off. Let me get a little bit closer. Sometimes this little tool is finicky and it wants to give me information that wasn't quite what I was looking for. Let's try over in Twiggs County instead. So yeah, maybe even 3 inches of rain in Twiggs County with that really impressive thunderstorm that again did have the tornado warning on it. In areas that were maybe just a touch lighter, seeing still up to about 1.5 inches of rain over the past 2 days. So yeah, pretty high rainfall totals again, like Alex said, kind of more than I was expecting to see as well.
close to 3 inches on the high end, and then on the low end, probably about half an inch or so. Let me take on one of those lower areas. Yeah, maybe an inch to half an inch to about an inch on some of the lower scale areas. So yeah, definitely put on a bit of a high rainfall total there, but we weren't quite in any flood watches or warnings that I've seen for the day today. So honestly, just some much needed rainfall, not only because it's been dry, but also because we've had so much pollen. All right, I'm hearing from our producer Megan that we have a photo from Putnam County. Wow, take a look at that. That is a roof that was ripped off of a building that, per Tammy Parham in our weather network, says used to be an axe throwing building. That is just crazy. So you'll remember they did not actually have a tornado warning in Putnam County. This was just straight line wind damage. So we saw when we were checking in on values, at the very least, wind speeds were up to 75 miles per hour or greater. Those are some really gusty winds, and we'll probably be seeing some damage reports roll in here for the next couple of hours. Again, you can send us your photos when it's safe to do so, and we really appreciate any damage photos or anything like that. You can send it into our newsroom, and we'll continue to kind of provide you the info that we have on that. But yeah, really impressive in terms of what those wind speeds were able to do, Alex.
Yes, exactly right. And you guys are really our eyes and ears. Obviously, we're here giving you all the data, but we can't get out there in real time and really get a good view of the damage. So when it is safe to do so, please continue to send in those photos and videos so we can give people a good depiction of what the impacts have been with this system as it's moved through central Georgia. Something we kind of taken our eye off a little bit because we haven't seen it too much on here is our hail parameters. So we're actually seeing a couple of scattered hail cores that are very hard to see when you mix in kind of the brown from the earth color, and then you start to see the brown shades on the hail scale right there. This is going to be on the far left side. So still, it was below the 1 inch threshold. However, this core just to the east of Cadwell now, it did pop up a hail core of about 1.1 inches in diameter. So that's obviously probably something that is driving the severe thunderstorm warning associated with this as it moves through southern Lawrence County. But still another little hail core about half an inch, a little larger than half an inch, just south of I-16. Then up in northeast Lawrence County, a hail core just below the half-inch threshold. So we're still mainly looking at hail that's about pea to dime to penny size. However, once you get closer to the inch threshold, that's getting around quarter size hail. So obviously getting a little bit larger in nature. Another reason that we continue to issue that just be inside throughout the bulk of these impacts. That's the best thing that you can do. Just be away from those windows. Obviously, you don't want to be near a window with hail 1.1 inches in diameter falling from the sky. Just continue and make sure you're away from windows, inside, and staying updated with us because we're not entirely out of the woods just yet. I know things have calmed down a little bit ever since we had the tornado-warned storm, but that may be relative to where you live. That may just be folks in Houston County. Folks in eastern and southeastern Lawrence County are just seeing the activity ramp up with the heavy rain and not as much really prominent lightning, but obviously our fair share of areas that are in these dark reds, even some shades of pink, right where we were talking about those hail cores. So just to the northeast of Cadwell, just crossing the I-16 right here in the easternmost portion of Lawrence County, transitioning over into Trutland County, and then scattered lightning strikes that we do see. And with that does come our fair share of straight line wind gusts. And as I say that, it looks like our final southeastern corner of central Georgia included in a severe thunderstorm warning. So this is going to go for many areas that are already in one, which is going to be the eastern half of Dodge County, southern Lawrence County, but now including Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery counties, and maybe this sliver of southern Trutland County that didn't get included in the last one. So other areas now that are going to see these impacts up until 4:30. I think 4:30 is still going to be more so the eastern half of this box, this right side around Alamo, Mount Vernon, heading into Wheeler and Montgomery counties. But Milan, Jacksonville, over to McRae, Helena, areas down in southern Dodge County, probably starting to see some of the heavier rain and hear it pelting against your window. Southern Lawrence County down to the south and southeast of Cadwell, where we're looking at that hail core. Other areas in Wheeler County, Alamo, over to Greenwood, Mount Vernon in Montgomery County, and then of course Soperton up in Trutland County. This should be the warning that is the last one here in central Georgia. We may see some other warnings tagged on that are overlapping, like you see right here in the eastern half of Dodge County. and that may be extended over here, but it does look like as we approach that 5 o'clock hour, the heaviest rain will be moving out of here. Ansley, it looks like you have the hail core popped up one more time. What you got over there?
Yeah, I was actually just going to say, because we just got our final severe thunderstorm warning, we may just go ahead and continue our coverage on our 13 WMAZ Plus streaming. So the good news is, hopefully we're going to be wrapped up with this whole thing soon. That severe thunderstorm warning was set to expire at 4:30 for our final 3 remaining counties that have yet to see this line come through. So we're going to keep on tracking this thing until it's out of our area entirely. But we're going to go ahead and continue the coverage on our streaming app, 13 WMAZ Plus, and we'll see you there in just a few minutes. All right, welcome back. We are continuing our coverage of our severe thunderstorm warnings, and luckily, I know it's not great news that we're under severe thunderstorm warnings, but it is good news that we have basically the last one we're going to be seeing for the central Georgia area for the rest of the day. Our final 3 counties that have yet to see impacts from this line just received a new severe thunderstorm warning, and I think meteorologist Alex Pry has a little more information on that, right, Alex?
Yes, exactly right. So if we go down to our far southeastern corner that we definitely mentioned in a bunch of severe weather forecasts, it does seem like these counties: Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery, and then stretching over into Trutland, southern Lawrence, and then kind of the southeastern half of Dodge County, especially where that notch is sticking up into southern Lawrence County and parts of Wheeler County. So Milan, McRae, Helena, getting down to Jacksonville, Lumber City, Mount Vernon, Alamo, Greenwood, and then other areas that are still within these severe thunderstorm warnings, including Abbeville, including Eastman, including Cadwell, including Soperton up in Trutland County. You guys are going to be the last of the bunch to see these impacts. Obviously, it has started to clear up in other areas up to the west and the northwest, but this warning, this last severe thunderstorm warning, is going to go until 4:30. So once we get to the 5 o'clock hour, I think we can be expecting this heaviest severe weather potential and impacts to move out of central Georgia and along I-16 to areas down to the south of us, down to the southeast of us. Obviously, another area that we do have some viewers in, right out of our viewing area, not necessarily in a severe thunderstorm warning right now, Vidalia in Toombs County. So I imagine once we get closer to 4:15, 4:30, we'll start to see some of the severe weather impacts closer to Vidalia in Toombs County, other areas down there, including Santa Claus, Georgia, and a couple of other small towns. Hazelhurst down to the southeast as well, Baxley over in Appling County, and then just to the south of us over in Fitzgerald as well, starting to see some of those reds move in, and that's going to be really the main punch of it. So right now it's spanning far and wide still in that southeastern corner of Washington County. Just due to the direction and the orientation of this front, we're really seeing rain linger a little bit farther up to the north in areas farther down to the south and the southwest, and maybe just indicating that we're seeing a little bit of strengthening on the southern extent of this line. These storms are starting to kick into motion a little bit faster than the storms to the north, so obviously they're stalling over other areas. Not seeing anything in the way of flash flood warnings as of right now. We're going to continue to keep an eye out on those green boxes if any are issued, but that wasn't something we were really outlining with this due to how quick moving this system is. And it's still making pretty good time. Obviously, it does feel like a long time we've been here on the stream, we've been on air, but I will say this activity started getting going around 12:45, closer to 1 o'clock, and that was in our far western counties. Well, now it's about 3:45. About 3 hours later, and this system is really pushing out of our eastern and southeasternmost counties, so it is a pretty quick moving system. That's why we're not expecting much in the puddling up of water that could create some flash flood warnings. We are seeing our fair share of standing water on our sky cams. I'll actually take it back to downtown Dublin real quick, because that was an area where we were seeing folks out on the roads. We were seeing some puddles on the roads, and yes, right here, you'll probably see someone drive through it here in just a second. 3, 2, 1, maybe, oh, there we go. So right there, going a little bit fast, but obviously only on one side of the road right there. If you do encounter any of those puddles of water, just be sure you're taking it a little bit slower. Obviously, that standing water can increase the risk of hydroplaning and such if you go at your normal speed down the road. But it is good to not see any reports of damage, working stoplights, and the winds have definitely gone down in terms of how gusty they are in downtown Dublin, but not to discount some areas around Dublin that could have seen some gustier winds, and they could have seen in some reports of trees down, power lines down, and we're continuing to keep a close eye on the National Weather Service chat for that. We did get a report in Wrench, Georgia of some dime and quarter-sized hail, so that was something we're keeping an eye out on as well. That risk was really low, but however, we have seen it play a factor, and the risk for a brief spin-up tornado was also relatively low compared to the straight-line wind gusts. We saw a tornado-warned storm stretch across a couple counties in Houston, South Bibb, into Twiggs County, and eventually over into Wilkinson County as well. So we have trees down at 316 Gawain Drive, or Gawain Drive, I believe, in Warner Robins. 2 cars are badly damaged apparently. Event time approximately 2:15 as that tornado warned and severe warned thunderstorm did move through the area. Coleman Farm Hill Road was falling. I'm not entirely sure where that is exactly. Correction on the address, 316, yes, Gawain Drive, I do believe, down in Warner Robins. So we're definitely hoping that everyone is okay. No one was in those cars and everyone was in the safety of their home right there. And we're going to continue to try to gather some photos for you all throughout the course of the stream as we continue to get them in. And please continue to send in your photos and videos only when it is safe to do so. Obviously, once the bulk moves through and we give that all clear, and that reminds me to do something else here in just a second after I get done looking at the reports. Only do it when it is safe to do so, and I will go back and issue an all clear for many counties. It's probably going to encompass about 2/3 of central Georgia now that we are moving into the later afternoon and early evening hours. So Wrench, Georgia, 1/4 inch hail falling at 2:38. 1132 Coleman Farm Road. So that's confirming what I did just reiterate to you guys about the hail cores associated with this. So let's go to the hail parameter while we're on the topic right now. And it is just a messy, messy picture. It has been quite an active afternoon here in central Georgia. We really saw activity start to get going towards our west, crossing the state line from Alabama. We didn't see any severe thunderstorm warnings across most of Alabama, and then once it moved into kind of our ripe atmosphere with all the ingredients that it needed, we started seeing severe thunderstorm tags. We started seeing tornado warnings, not just here in central Georgia, but up I-75 around Peachtree City, getting into the McDonough area along the I-20 corridor. So that is good that we're not seeing any of those right now, but of course something we're continuing to keep a close eye on. So now let's go down here, and it doesn't look like the hail cores are maybe as large as what we're really looking at. We're not looking at them being maybe an inch in diameter per se anymore. However, we are still seeing scattered hail cores, and they're really hard to pick out. I'm going to try to click each one of them that I can find or I can visibly see. And it does look like one of them, that some of them just moved on me. Only hail maybe about 1/4 inch in diameter is what we're looking at down in southern Lawrence County, maybe eastern Lawrence County, trekking over towards Soperton and Trutland County, and then hail size about 4/10 of an inch just to the northeast of Wrightsville. That will be moving out. Looks to be in the direction of the southern tip of Jefferson County, the northern edge of Emmanuel County, just to the northwest of Swainsboro, in between Swainsboro and Wadley, Georgia. So now let's go back to our clear satellite and radar picture and take away all the watch boxes, all of the clouds, so you can get a better picture once again of what's going on in real time. I'm going to take it all the way out to now, right there. Pause it. Take away the watch boxes. Take away the satellite right there. So now this gives me a better picture of what we're looking at with this main line. Once this line does pass you, you're basically all in the clear. So I'm going to draw a line here real quick and give you guys an idea. I did mention a little bit earlier some areas that were already in the all clear. And this is kind of a rough estimate as well. Obviously, I would have to zoom in a little bit to get better resolution on this. So we'll go AC for all clear. Everyone to the left of this line, we are going to go ahead and issue the all clear. Obviously, you still have your rain in counties like Bibb County, all the way down I-75, Houston County, Peach, over into eastern Macon County, Dooley County. And it can be steady and heavy at times, and you may still hear a rumble of thunder or two Obviously, still continue to stay indoors when we do hear those rumbles of thunder, but it does look like you'll just have a little bit of an extra cleanse of that pollen behind that initial main line of showers and thunderstorms. So we're continuing to see this move generally eastward. So this front as a whole, if I take away this, I'm going to do some more drawing real quick because we were talking about many areas that we're seeing the impacts and kind of what direction all of this is moving in. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the front. This isn't actually where the front is, but kind of just imagine it right here. And I apologize for my artistic ability. But this front is moving in from the northwest towards the southeast, right where you see kind of this direction of the arrow that I've been drawing. That is the general direction that the front will be pushing through. However, the storms relative to this front are not moving in the southeasterly direction. They're actually moving in more of a northeasterly direction. So that's why we're continuing to see these severe thunderstorm warning boxes, issued a little bit over towards the east each time we continue to get them. That's the relative motion of the storms. However, the front as a whole, the driving force, is pushing the entirety of this line down towards the southeast. And it is stalling in some areas at times. However, this is still a fairly quick moving front, but I did want to note that because some areas down to the southwest are still going to be what we're looking at. Obviously, this cluster right here, just to the south of Wilcox County, that could very well creep into southern portions of Telfair County. If I zoom in right here, and as you see, a severe thunderstorm warning right here, mainly for what I believe is right there, some of those pinks and some of those dark red colors. This is set to expire around 4 p.m., so I imagine this will probably be extended. It could even clip some areas right here in southern Telfair County, so that would be the Jacksonville area, getting really close to other areas in Telfair County, especially Lumber City, and then over into Hazelhurst, just one county to the southeast. But right now, as it stands, it looks like we still just have the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings here in central Georgia, and they're fairly widespread. They're encompassing a good amount of counties and kind of hard to see. Let's actually take away the radar and the lightning for a second so you can get a clear image of this. So those hail cores are going to be embedded within this right now in these severe thunderstorm warnings. Again, only about 1/4 to 1/2 inch in diameter. We did see some hail cores pop up above the inch threshold. That was fairly short-lived, however. So all the way from Louisville down to Soperton, so Jefferson County, the southeastern corner of Washington County. Washington County has been very reluctant to get out of this severe thunderstorm warning. Eastern Johnson County, the eastern edge of Lawrence County, and then the entirety of Treutlen County, the west half of Emmanuel County, really drawing a dividing line on Swainsboro there with this top warning. This is going to go until 4:15, so about another 22-ish minutes on this warning, or we could see it canceled a little bit earlier if the features don't hold up. However, if it still has some scattered hail core signatures, I imagine the winds are still relatively gusty. They'll keep this warning throughout the entirety of its duration. Now we go down to the southernmost warning here in central Georgia, and that will go for Dodge, this edge of Wilcox County. I imagine the heaviest stuff has moved out of this edge just to the south and southeast of Abbeville. But Dodge County, the southern tip of Lawrence County, all of Wheeler County, all of Telfair County, and all of Montgomery County, maybe overlapping with some areas here in the eastern portion of Lawrence County, southern Treutlen County as well. And this warning will go until 4:30. So I told you we were monitoring what was going on to the south and the southwest of us. Well, we did see an extension of this warning that we were saying was going to expire at 4 p.m. We now see that extension. However, it doesn't necessarily go overlap any areas here in central Georgia, hopefully more of a general easterly direction with this section of the storms. This is many counties to the south of us: Ben Hill, Berrien, Irwin County, Tift County, all the way down to Tifton along I-75, Fitzgerald, and then eventually other areas in Coffee County, probably the Douglas area, Hazelhurst, Baxley, Alma, within the vicinity, probably in the next hour or two. So if anyone is tuning in from there, that's roughly the timing we can expect with that. So it looks like we got a new severe thunderstorm warning, and right on cue, we hear the beep here in the background. This one is for Emmanuel and Treutlen, just covering the right half of Emmanuel County now. In this very eastern edge of Treutlen County, we typically see a little bit of overlap with these warnings. So this is still part of the same thunderstorm that's trekking from the west right now. And let's pop up satellite and radar back up. well, not the satellite actually, we don't want to look at the cloud cover. I think everyone can tell you that it is pretty cloudy outside, maybe even a little bit of clearing farther over to the west. I haven't taken a look at that, but obviously that would be the concern once all the severe weather has moved out of here. So plenty of lightning coupling together, some heavy batches of rain if we take away the lightning. Once again, the yellows, the reds, the dark reds, this is going to indicate your very heavy rainfall, about the heaviest that it can get, and also where your hail cores are going to be embedded within, especially the pink areas in northern Treutlen County. Treutlen County as an entirety looks to be receiving pretty heavy rainfall as this severe thunderstorm does move out towards the east, but still going to take about 15 to 20 minutes for this heaviest band to move through. And then after that, you should be in the all clear for the remainder of today. There is something I do want to talk about, and really we've been focused on the live coverage so much. We're not really seeing much change. I say that, and let me double check the winds because that's something we really don't want to keep or lose our eye on per se. We want to continue to keep an eye on any of these notches. So obviously we saw potential rotation up in northern Houston, southern Bibb that did sprout a tornado warning. In fact, 2 tornado warnings that extended for a couple of counties. Not seeing anything really indicative of maybe a notch or a kink where the winds are starting to push over in one direction as opposed to the other. It does look like it is a fairly uniform line all the way through and through. And this takes it all the way down to the southern extent of this, down into Telfair County. Still not seeing any indications of broad rotation or rotation whatsoever. So that is obviously always a good sign. I want to take it over to our future view model, and it's probably updated since I last looked at it. I haven't been paying too much attention to it, obviously, during the coverage. But we continue to see this system exit. This is 7 p.m. I think we'll start to exit well before that, maybe around 5 p.m., 5:30, maybe just to be safe. And we'll hopefully get that weather impact alert out of here a little bit before scheduled around the 6 p.m. window. However, what I want to turn your attention to is as we go into the nighttime hours, this line right here, maybe some residual precipitation. This is actually going to indicate the front itself pushing through. So the front will be behind this and continuing to push this thin line of light showers through the southeast. The National Weather Service did give us the guidance this morning that maybe we could see an uptick in some activity, some strengthening with this secondary line. However, I'm not really buying it whatsoever because number one, this wave that has passed through, it has used up every ounce of available energy for the tornado warnings and the severe thunderstorm warnings. So there's virtually nothing left in terms of instability, moisture, anything for this system to work with. And number two, pay attention to this timing. We were talking so much about the timing of this system being during one of the warmest parts of the day, so that's obviously going to contribute to a strengthening trend as opposed to an overnight into early morning risk. Well, this is going into 9 p.m. That's why we're not resolving much on future view. I think if you do see anything for the remainder of the night, it's going to be more so light showers and sprinkles. If you're fast asleep, you probably won't even notice this rain whatsoever. It may just still be a little bit wet as you head out the door tomorrow. So let's continue to play it through future view. Not much activity whatsoever. Some scattered sprinkles here and there. Like I said, it's going to be pretty cool. We're not going to have a lot of energy to work with. So that's why I am pretty confident that we're just going to see maybe some residual showers really, but just think of them as another reinforcing push to wash away any of that pesky pollen over recent days. Now we take it to the HRRR model. This model has been what we have been showing over the course of the last couple of days because our typical future view model, the graph model, has not been resolving this system very well whatsoever. And I do think that things came to fruition a little bit better according to what this model says as opposed to our typical future view model. And we have to pick and choose sometimes. Normally the graph is really good at things. However, the HRRR model has been the winner in my opinion on this, but obviously you can see that this line of thin precipitation really does fizzle out over the course of the overnight hours. So I hear another beep. Just wanted to let you know what could be in store for the rest of your evening into the nighttime hours, so don't be alarmed if you continue to maybe hear some sprinkles hitting your window. Ansley looks like she's ready to go. Right there, what do you see with this new severe thunderstorm warning, I believe?
Great news with the severe thunderstorm warning. I think they're just taking more and more counties out of it. So if you were in, and I just saw them give me the actual information here from the National Weather Service chat, if you were under the severe thunderstorm warning for I believe it was just for kind of Dodge, Treutlen, Lawrence. They canceled that kind of area and then extended it for the rest of what I called our big three, if you were with me for the last few lines. Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery counties here, just extending that warning for them. So really the rest, the remaining counties here in central Georgia is just Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery, Trutland, and then kind of the eastern end of Johnson County here. As these things always go, they're always kind of the last ones to see the effects from this line. But I will say, in Trutland County and kind of the eastern half of Johnson County, the wind speeds have picked up just a touch here. So I know earlier, if you were kind of tracking with us, I was mentioning what a good sign it was that we didn't quite have those bright yellow values in our velocity, meaning the wind speeds, they were still high enough for severe thunderstorm warnings, but they weren't quite so bad as what we saw earlier with the really high straight line wind damage that ended up causing a lot of damage to structures, to trees, to different things like that. Now we're starting to see some of those yellow values return. So outside of our viewing area towards Wadley and Louisville, I believe that is in Warren County, maybe Jefferson County as well. That area is starting to see some of those higher wind speed values, and then now kind of making its way out of Johnson County, but you can still see a little bit of yellow there. So that's where winds are probably still a bit gusty here. And then further down towards the south into Trutland County, winds there are still pretty strong as well. So unfortunately for our remaining couple of counties that have to be under this line, still keeping your guard up while it rolls over. The straight line wind threat is still there, and the winds are still fairly gusty, especially kind of over Soperton as well. Luckily down here towards Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery, the values of velocity are just a little bit lower, so not quite as bright here. We're dealing with some duller red colors and not quite seeing maybe just a little bit of those yellows and oranges, so not quite as bad. Hopefully that means the wind speeds there are just a little bit less gusty. But yeah, I always feel this way when we start to get towards the end of our viewing area here, just getting excited for everybody to be through with this and being able to issue the all clear not too long from here. Oh, I didn't mean to click that one. So let's just take a look kind of around the bend again. We're still dealing with a lot of lightning. It has been a bright day today. There's been several lightning strikes, kind of that area that has high wind speeds that I was just talking about in Trutland County also has some decent lightning as well, and maybe potentially because of how dark the wind speeds are, yeah, some hail as well. And that looks like hail about, and maybe Alex already touched on this. Okay, maybe I think a little bit bigger than that, and maybe I grabbed the wrong pixel. Give me 1 second, just try that again. That orange value is the one that I'm going for here, but maybe that was. Okay, so maybe only about 7/10 of an inch over there just to the east of Soperton, but nonetheless, I think in terms of kind of this whole line, that does seem to be in our viewing area at least where things might be just kind of the strongest, just because of what I'm seeing lightning-wise, what I'm seeing rainfall-wise, and then also what I saw in terms of the wind speeds in that area as well. They're just continuing the severe thunderstorm warning for Trutland County and then outside of our viewing area as well. The good news with both of these is this has been a quick mover all day long. So we are supposed to be through with this not too long from now. I think both of these warnings, give me our warning. Yeah, there we go. Both of these warnings are set to expire around 4:30. I think the Trutland County one may be even earlier. I think it's around 4:15. Yeah, so in the next 15 to 30 minutes, we will hopefully finally be able to issue the all clear for just about everybody. And I'll say, something else that's been positive is there hasn't really been areas of rotation since we had the tornado warning that was over in South Bibb, Northern Houston, and Twiggs County. So we're really just dealing with a straight line wind threat from kind of here on out, obviously keeping an eye on if things try to stir up again, but luckily right now things are looking pretty straight in terms of the wind speeds, but definitely gusty. Like I said, we had, let's see if I can get a wind speed value from Trutland County, since that seems to be where things are a little bit gusty. And I'll flip these warnings off. Yeah, definitely still getting pretty gusty there, but hopefully making its way out of Trutland County here in the next 15 minutes or so. Maybe not quite as bad as what we saw earlier. 62 miles an hour is the reading that I'm getting now, and that's definitely lower. When I was watching the line in Monroe and in Butts and Jasper County, I was getting readings of 75 miles per hour, and I know the National Weather Service said some wind speeds could have been greater than that. So we'll take 62 miles per hour, not quite as bad as what we saw earlier, but certainly a gusty wind there. Everybody else is just dealing with some remnant rain. I know Alex touched on that. Maybe a few rumbles of thunder, but other than that, the actual severe threat is past us. So it's really just a kind of nice, light, steady rain, and that may continue into the overnight hours tonight as well. I know for sure Alex just mentioned that, but we may just have a couple of showers. Luckily, I do think that our severe weather threat is past us for a while here. We just got to make it through Wheeler, Telfair, Montgomery, and then kind of just the rest of Treutlen County here. But we are getting close to losing this thing. Now let's take a look at rainfall just one more time. And this number can continue to go up as we kind of keep dealing with showers and storms for the next couple of days here. And we continue to get damage reports from kind of the Warner Robins area where we had that tornado warning. I'll be really interested to see what the National Weather Service does in terms of damage surveys. I think because we're approaching the evening here and because we're still dealing with this line and they're still having to kind of do active forecasting and severe weather coverage here, they won't be able to get out probably until tomorrow. But I'd imagine that this is going to be one of the first places that they head to do a damage survey down in Houston and in southern Bibb, just south of the Macon Regional Airport. And it'll be really interesting to see what they find. What's really helpful with that is if you continue to send us damage reports, you can send them into our newsroom. It really helps us out because we can pass that information onto the National Weather Service and it gives them a really good idea of where they should be going. So we'll keep you posted on that, but I really do think they'll probably head there. There's the number on your screen if you are interested in sending some damaged photos. Of course, once it's safe, but for most of our viewing area, aside from Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery and Treutlen, you should be in the all clear. You can text your photos to 478-752-1309, and we will kind of share those photos with the National Weather Service and also may be able to use them on our newscast as well. I know Alex said before, you are our eyes and ears. That is really true. When we're here in the studio, there's only so much we can really tell of what's going on out in the field. So it's really helpful when you send us photos and just general information about what you're seeing near your house or where you live kind of in that whole area. So back to the rainfall totals. We're seeing close to over 2 inches of rain kind of in the Twiggs County area. I know earlier I saw a reading that was 3 inches of rain. Yeah, really good rainfall totals and honestly much needed. I haven't looked at the drought monitor in quite some time, but I do think we were kind of in some dry conditions here for some time. So really good amount of rainfall, but just something that you might want to be careful of when you're out on the roads for the rest of the evening tonight and kind of into tomorrow as well. We're getting close to those warnings getting ready to expire, at least in Treutlen County. I think that one is for 4:15. So let's see what's happening in Treutlen County. Still a lot of lightning. I wish we had some sort of camera over there. I'm looking at our traffic cams to see if there's anything I can grab. I've kind of been doing that all day, but unfortunately with the gusty winds, the traffic cams, I don't know if they're not quite as plugged in or they're not quite as strong, but they seem to go out whenever the winds are a little gusty. So
pop it over to the sky cam. We have a sky camera available in Swainsboro that I just popped up.
oh yeah, we do. Let's see. Unfortunately, I've never known which direction the Swainsboro camera faces.
And we don't have control over it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we can't really move it around, but you can kind of see maybe the shelf cloud out to the left of the screen. So maybe we're facing towards the north, if I had to think about it like that, because it's coming in from the west.
Let's see if it could tell me the direction. Don't think so.
Well, we did get a pretty good look when we were in Dublin, so that's okay.
I would say it's probably, it looks like it's kind of just getting going down there.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so probably facing
Or
towards
maybe,
the north.
actually no, winding, no, they're still kind of in the
It
thick
could be
of it.
winding down or just,
I think it's just getting going down there.
okay, yeah. So it's probably facing to the north. So yeah, same kind of picture that we saw in Dublin, a little bit of a shelf cloud approaching, and then you can see the rain start to take over as it heads into the area. And like I said, the winds are a little gusty now in that area also, so that's just something to pay attention to, really mostly for our Treutlen County folks, because everybody else, oof, look at all that lightning,
Wow.
is pretty much in the all clear. But yeah, it's still bright, it's still gusty, we're still just hanging on to this thing for the next little bit here. Down in our big three, as I like to say, less gusty, but still strong. And maybe some of the line that's in Treutlen County here might be causing a little bit of gusty winds in the northern end of Montgomery County as well. Let's see if, oh, I was just about to get a reading, but I gotta flip this off. Okay. Yeah, still just the same number that I got a few minutes ago. So not really a ton different from what we're seeing in Treutlen County, but think Alex, you got any new information for us over there?
I have a couple updates on the outlooks and the watches that we do have, and obviously just one thing we do want to take away, just because it seems like things have calmed down, areas farther down in those big three that Ansley was referring to are still seeing some pretty heavy impacts, and just because they're not necessarily heavy in one area doesn't mean that they can't be heavy just a couple miles down the road. Those occasional wind gusts are going to be very local that are getting upwards to 50 and 60 miles per hour. So the day one storm outlook, let's go back to the radar first. That's a little more important. I believe that's probably a trimming off of a severe thunderstorm warning or an extension. So. It does look like, I think another one has been issued. Okay, maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, it does look like a little bit over towards the west. We have seen some areas trimmed off of this. Still a fair share of heavy rain around McRae, just moving out of Milan and Telfair County. The western edge of Wheeler County, just west of Alamo, still seeing some heavy rain around the notch of Dodge County, and that southern tip of Lawrence County, and then the northern portion of Wheeler County as well. Kind of a gap right there. Obviously no severe thunderstorm warning anymore, but still wait a little bit until we give you the all clear. We are very close to doing that, probably once we come up on around 4:30, maybe just a little bit after, and then the heaviest impacts will have moved out and we will issue the all clear for all of central Georgia. But I did mention those areas are still dealing with their fair share of gusty winds, heavy rainfall and such, but it is a good sign to continue to see this day one storm outlook. So when we were showing it all morning long, this orange color, this enhanced level 3 risk, covered all of central Georgia and virtually all the areas around us. Well, we've seen an update on that, and many areas have been taken out of a risk whatsoever. Still a level 1 and a level 2 and eventually a level 3. I think obviously that's really just existing down here where we did see on the radar, but a good indication for everyone not in any risk whatsoever, definitely in the all clear and including some areas in this level 1 and level 2 risk. But also to go along with that, our severe thunderstorm watch. We have seen many more counties trimmed off of this. So Hancock County, Baldwin, Wilkinson, Twiggs, down to Bleckley, Houston, and Dooley, and everyone else up to the west, up to the northwest, going up I-75. You are in the all clear. You have been taken out of the severe thunderstorm watch, and many of these other counties over here highlighted in the yellow will continue to get taken off of this severe thunderstorm watch, like Washington, probably getting into Lawrence pretty soon. Still some heavy rain and some gusty winds lingering there. Dodge County still a little bit as well, but I think Wilcox, Pulaski, and Crisp will probably be taken out pretty soon as well. The best image that we can give you right now is the current satellite and radar picture. That really gives us a good indication of where that main initial line is continuing to move through. Take away the watch boxes, take away the satellite. Honestly, let's take away the warnings too right now and try to pause this and take away the lightning. Okay, that's a much clearer image than what we just had. So I'll take a line and I'll draw it once again behind this heaviest line. We'll go give a little bit of leeway right here. So everyone to the west and the left of this line and to the north, you guys are in the all clear. You still have some rainfall out and about. If you hear a rumble of thunder, it's going to be very scattered in nature, but it doesn't look like, if I look very closely right here, we're not seeing really any lightning. I took the lightning off, that's why. I was about to say, this looks a little bit odd. So yes, still our fair share of scattered lightning strikes here and there. When thunder roars, head indoors, just stay inside. However, it does look to be very scattered in nature. Not to say that it still can't pop up like it just did right there on the edge of Bleckley and Dodge County, right there around probably the Dudley and the Dexter area just to the north and northwest of Cadwell. But the heaviest bunch is still moving through Treutlen County, Montgomery, Wheeler, and Telfair counties. It looks like it's really moving out of Dodge County and Lawrence County, but other areas to the east of us, the eastern edge of Johnson County, pretty widespread in Swainsboro, which reminds me, let me go take it back to the sky camera right now, see what's going on in downtown Swainsboro. Yep, quite a messy image right here. You're still seeing some gusty winds. There you go, flash of lightning. That's probably pretty frequent down there in Swainsboro, but it does look to really just be some occasional gusty winds and some pretty heavy rainfall at times. Obviously, those occasional wind gusts can get up to a pretty severe threshold, upwards to 60 miles per hour. So if you do encounter one of those, definitely be sure that you are, if you're in your car, maybe trying to pull over and such, or just get behind something that is going to block you from those wind gusts. But we have seen reports of damage according to some of these wind gusts so far. And a messy image right now down in Emmanuel County around the Swainsboro area. But that's kind of where things stand. We just have virtually 4, maybe 5 counties still within these severe thunderstorm warnings, still within not necessarily the all clear area, but most of central Georgia still does fall within this, and we're seeing outlooks and watches trim back accordingly as the system, like we've been saying, it's a quick mover. I mean, this started right before 1 o'clock and maybe getting out of here in about 4 hours or so. So that is a very quick mover, and it really does kind of go along with the window that we were saying, somewhere around 12 to ending a little bit earlier, obviously, not 6 o'clock necessarily. We could even end this before 5 o'clock, which would not be a bad thing whatsoever. Things would clear up for your evening commute home from work, and pretty good timing, obviously. If we get it out before the 5 o'clock hour, many of you are already in the safety of your office. You were somewhere indoors, and then the drive home should be smooth sailing, but continue to look out for those puddles, anything downed in the form of trees and power lines and such. Ansley has a look at the temperatures right now. That's definitely very important right now. I'm sure many areas are feeling a lot cooler that have already seen this rain, right, Ansley?
Yeah, well, it's a part of a cold front. So what happened was, there we go, sorry. It's a part of a cold front. So what's going to happen behind it, not a ton, but it's going to cool down the air just a touch. But I also want to show you this map just to show you the kind of atmosphere that this line was running into all day. So part of the reason that I think we made the jump up to a level 3 from the Storm Prediction Center was because they knew that this line was going to be running into our area during the heat of the daytime. So even though we had a lot of cloud cover today, our temperatures were still able to climb up to, we got an 81 degrees in Vidalia. So the temperatures were still able to get really, really warm. And if you know anything about severe weather, you know that that is one of the main ingredients that you need to have some severe weather. So as this cold front came through, it ran into some really unstable air, really, really warm air, and that's still what it's doing, pushing into our southeastern counties here. So running into temperatures in the upper 70s, in the low 80s. So it's still got plenty of fuel ahead of it. And I think that that's one of the reasons we made the jump to the level 3. But like Alex said, behind it is dropping temperatures a touch as well. So we were part of a cold front. It's only cooling our temperatures down into the 60s. So it probably feels definitely less swampy than it did earlier today, but it's not cooling us down a ton. And you'll notice if we I'll just show you the future view temperatures to show you tomorrow. It's really not going to change things much for tomorrow. We'll kind of have a brief shot tonight at getting in the upper 40s, maybe low 50s, but heading into Tuesday, we're going to climb right back into the low 80s. So it's not one of those true cold fronts. We're in the springtime now, where the warmer air just kind of sits with us for longer, but that is at least going to make for a little bit of relief tonight. I know if you kind of want something my family always did was like eat dinner outside. If it's something you wanted to do tonight, it would be a little bit nicer to do so. The temperatures probably will feel a little bit better. But in terms of where this line is running into, you saw those 80-degree numbers down in Montgomery, down in Wheeler. It's still running into that really unstable air, which is why it's still able to spur up these showers and storms ahead of where it's heading. So continuing to do that as it sweeps further towards the east, as it heads towards the coast, it'll keep running into some moisture and some of those really warm temperatures and probably be able to keep firing up, which is why I think they've maintained the level 3 and the level 2 ahead of where this is heading. I'll say the good news is, though, it really hasn't turned much as it's pushed into our southeastern half here. We're still seeing really gusty winds, up to probably beyond 60 miles per hour, but the rotation has not quite fired up as much as it was kind of when we were in the center of central Georgia here. And again, I'll just be so curious to hear the National Weather Service's report of the damage from where we had the tornado warning from northern Houston and southern Bibb into Twiggs County. That will be a really interesting thing to learn for tomorrow. But as of right now, no signs of rotation at the moment, and just waiting on this thing to kind of keep on keeping on into the rest of eastern Georgia here. But the good news is, for most of Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery, it's already about halfway through the county. So we're moving into the final few little bit here. And I do think, unless they are just holding on to, just about this eastern corner here. I was about to say that Trutland is out of the warning, but it looks like they may have them held on to just this tiny little part of the eastern part of Trutland there. But I do think that this warning, Man, I was really hoping that it was about to expire. No, I don't think so. So I guess they're just holding on to that little corner, but there is a chance they probably will trim out the remaining part of Treatland County here in the next couple of minutes. I know their actual warning for most of the county did expire, but it looks like they're just holding on to the eastern part that's still sitting underneath that line. Everybody else around 4:30, which is 10 minutes from now. So we'll see if this storm keeps moving at a good clip and we can get it out of here in the next 10 minutes. I hope so. There's a world in where they maybe could hold on to it to another 15 minutes or so, but hopefully they'll be kicking it out of here soon. But yeah, just holding on. Alex, you got something?
Yeah, I have a couple more damage reports that we've just seen in the National Weather Service chat. It looks like John Green up with Fayette County has been down in Warner Robins observing some damage, so we appreciate your help out down here in central Georgia. But he did report a tree down, 1 foot trunk diameter at 211 Belvedere Drive in the Camelot subdivision in Warner Robins. That occurred around 2:15 with that severe thunderstorm and that tornado warned storm. And then a large tree and power lines down about 1.5 to 2 feet in diameter, those tree trunks that did down some power lines. That was at 112 Wesleyan in Warner Robins. The second tree did take down some telephone lines, so obviously if you live near that area, I'm not sure if it's Wesleyan Drive, Wesleyan Road or such, but if you know what I'm talking about and obviously see some damage around there, that's a part of town that you definitely want to avoid. And I did get a report from a former teacher of mine who does live down in Cadwell. She did report that they had some pea-sized hail down there in Cadwell and southwest Lawrence County. That does line up with what we were seeing on the hail size in those hail cores, and actually a little bit less in diameter. We did even see the hail core pop up to about the inch threshold in diameter. Hopefully that was as high as it did get, or it didn't even get that high. But we do have some confirmed reports of about pea-sized hail. Going to work and try to gather some pictures and videos of that as well. And once again, as the system is continuing to push out, many people are in the all clear. So once we do give you the all clear, it will be safe to do so. Please get out and send us photos and videos. You guys are our eyes and ears. We can only see so much here in the studio. We're limited to 4 sky cameras that we have all around central Georgia. So right there, the number on your screen, 478-752-1309. Please text photos and those damage reports to that number here at 13 WMAZ when it is safe to do so, and we will be able to give the all clear for everyone, indicating that it will be safe for everyone to do so for those damage reports. So I took away everything in terms of the radar, in terms of the cloud cover, in terms of the lightning. It really gives these severe thunderstorm warnings a lot clearer of an image to look at. So this one right here for the rightmost edge of Treatland County, and just to the east of Soperton along I-16, we still have this severe thunderstorm warning, which will go for quite a bit longer. However, it's more so for areas in Emmanuel County and the eastern half of Emmanuel County east of Swainsboro. And then our 3 counties down here in the far southeast, Telfair County, Wheeler County, Montgomery County, and not to take away from Toombs County, Vidalia as well. Anyone watching down there, you guys still have your severe thunderstorm warnings in place. Right as I say that, the rightmost edge, this eastern edge of Treatland County, has been taken out of that severe thunderstorm warning. We will likely look at a trimming back of this warning here pretty soon. I believe it expires around 4:30.
They say.
Yeah. So that will be some good news. Looking forward to hopefully issuing the all clear, but not necessarily out of the woods just yet. So we're going to continue to stay on here until all these warnings do go away, because I've very well seen some tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings pop up in the southeasternmost corner of central Georgia.
Yeah.
So obviously we know some of you do live down there. Some of you may be tuned in down there. We want to make sure that you have all the information available, and we're going to stick with you through the bulk of this severe weather and all of this severe weather risk. Ansley, it looks like you have a pretty good picture of downtown Dublin.
Yes.
Quite a wet scene.
I do, yeah. And I was going to take, I'll do this in just a second. I was going to take kind of a look around all the sky cams, because I know we still have some showers remaining and a couple of storms as well. But I'm running to my radar because I just saw them trim off some counties or some areas of Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery. Hold on, it's loading just a second here. It'll pop up in just a moment with all of the lightning. All right, yeah, they did go ahead and take off basically kind of from Milan to, I would essentially say, Mount Vernon, even though it's kind of on the line there. For our remaining 3 counties in the severe thunderstorm warning, they are doing their best to let as many people out of this warning as they possibly can. So it really is just from about Jacksonville all the way up to Vidalia that's still under this severe thunderstorm warning, just the really, really tail end of all these 3 counties here. And then this warning is set to expire. I don't know if they extended the time. No, they did not. So that's actually even better news. They're thinking probably in the next 10 minutes, the remaining areas of our central Georgia viewing area here will finally be out of these warnings. We kicked Trutland out. I almost did a dance. I was excited. So hopefully we can just get the remaining areas here from, again, like kind of Jacksonville, including Lumber City, Mount Vernon, all the way up to about Vidalia is the last few areas. And in terms of what we're still seeing, because like Alex said, this, you never want to let your guard down while we're in the tail end of things here. We're still seeing some gusty winds here. So this wind speed value that I'm seeing, I'm still seeing some of those oranges and yellows. That's when I know that the wind speeds are still really high. So yeah, in excess of 60 miles per hour, in excess of 65 miles per hour, especially in Montgomery County, a little bit less in Wheeler and in Telfair counties, but the highest wind speeds are kind of right over Vidalia right now. So if you are in Vidalia, it's probably getting pretty breezy over there, pretty gusty, and these are still some of those straight line winds. So waiting this out inside in kind of a safe spot in your home for the next few minutes while this rolls over you. Mount Vernon, it's kind of the worst of it's rolling past Mount Vernon now, probably into the rest of Wheeler County here, and then towards Alamo and McRae, you are no longer in the severe thunderstorm warning. So this has already rolled over you. So just good news in terms of them taking people out of the warnings. There's another look at them there for you. And let's flip back over to the sky cams, and I will kind of take a look at what's remaining here for everybody else. I do think Dublin's still sitting under some rain. So yeah, just a couple of light showers now remaining in downtown Dublin. Just kind of adding to the rainfall totals. I know we already have some pretty decent puddles in this area, especially out on the roads. But in terms of actual severe weather potential, it's gone. You're just dealing with some remnant showers and a couple of lightning strikes, maybe a few rumbles of thunder as well. I'll take it over to Perry, who north of Perry, they were still getting some damage reports, and there's still some pretty, it would help if I turned it on. There's still some pretty decent clouds in Perry that may look a little bit ominous, and I'll kind of rotate things around here. So I'm facing where this line is still heading further towards the south and east. But yeah, still some kind of ominous looking clouds, at least in Perry, just what's left over in terms of moisture from that line. Our new cameras are so awesome. They do such a great job of showing things so much better. So yeah, there's the look, but the birds are out, and I think things are just much calmer and clearer now. But yeah, there may just still be some lingering clouds that may have a little bit of a spooky sight to them, but they're harmless. So we're just dealing with some light rain and maybe a couple of lightning strikes for the rest of the evening. The winds are probably still up just a touch as well. I'll turn over to the flags. They usually give me a good idea. Oh, maybe not. It's actually pretty calm in terms of wind speeds now that this initial front is gone. It may be a bit breezy, wind gusts up to probably 15 miles an hour or so through the rest of the evening, but the winds will start to truly become calm as we head into the overnight hours. I forgot we have this camera, CGTC.
Yeah, I kind of neglected it today too.
I didn't even think about that.
We did get that glimpse of the shelf cloud moving in, and that was definitely a really good shot.
Yeah,
probably
that was
the first indication of everything moving in.
Yeah, that was a great shot. That was definitely just showed the strength of this line. That shelf cloud was really, really impressive. Now it's still kind of the same scene as what's going on over Perry, and I don't really see any damage in the surrounding area here in CGTC, so that's good news. But definitely just still kind of a muggy, gloomy sight. But the clouds that you're seeing now, like I said, they're not impactful, despite the fact that they may just look a little creepy here. It's really just some rain and maybe a couple rumbles of thunder as well. And finally, I'll take us to downtown Macon. We don't have the awesome camera here just yet, so maybe not quite as great of a scene. But yeah, just still dealing with, again, remnant showers, and things are mostly calm other than that here. So that's just kind of a scene of where things are already cleared out, what things look like now, and probably what they'll look like for the rest of your evening until we head into kind of the overnight hours, and then things will really start to clear up. Because of how much moisture we still have today, you'll probably start your day tomorrow off with a little bit of patchy fog across the area. So in terms of waking up for work tomorrow morning, just noting that you may have some fog. There may be some damage and debris that may not be cleared up just yet heading out on the roads on your way home from work. So just being aware that even though the actual threat is gone, the emergency management crews are still getting out and assessing damage from this line, and now they're able to kind of get out there and start helping people repair and move damage out of the roads and things like that, get power lines back up. So just being aware on your commute home that there could be some areas of debris that you may want to watch out for, even though the actual initial line is past you. Those are usually the things you want to pay attention to after weather rolls through. So I'll throw it over to Alex and we'll just keep on sitting with this for the next probably 5-10 minutes or so.
Exactly, and we do have another good update. More counties trimmed off this severe thunderstorm watch. That will include, I can't remember exactly which counties were and weren't in it, but now we do know that Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery, Treutlen, and Toombs, along with Emmanuel County, are still left in that yellow shaded area. Seeing counties like Lawrence, Johnson County, Bleckley, Dodge, Pulaski, Wilcox, Dooley, and Chris all taken out of this severe thunderstorm watch. And it still goes for all these shaded areas until 7 p.m. tonight. However, we have seen these areas trimmed off in real time as the heaviest impacts do move through central Georgia and eventually out of central Georgia. So I do believe areas over to the east and the southeast are going to get trimmed off of that warning last. They may allow this warning to continue to go until 7 p.m. But right now, just looking at the progress of the system, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. Another 2.5 hours, I think the system will be well off to the east in the state of South Carolina. So this severe thunderstorm watch could probably end for the entirety of everyone in it a little bit before 7 p.m. But these counties are still what we're watching and still dealing with our fair share of heavy rain, even a little bit of gusty winds. However, we haven't necessarily seen really some very, very straight line gusty winds that are packing quite a punch, as much as they were farther over to the west and the northwest and the west, excuse me, right there. So these red colors are still what we're keeping an eye out for.
Oh,
this
Alex,
is going to encounter.
They
Yes.
dropped it.
Say what?
They dropped the warning.
Oh, wow. I was so locked in, I didn't even realize that. So let me take away the watch boxes. And it does look like every county here in central Georgia, I got to take all these satellite and things off. It looks like every county in central Georgia has been taken out of a severe thunderstorm warning. So there is one down to the south encompassing Fitzgerald, over in Vidalia and the eastern half of Emmanuel County, still right on the edge of us. But we are in the all clear here in central Georgia. So we have been looking forward to issuing that all afternoon long. Our fair share of severe thunderstorm warnings that did move through with this line of showers and storms, even our fair share of tornado warned storms, which we're obviously going to continue to keep you updated on. And once we get a crew out there to assess the damage in Warner Robins, possible rotation is what we indicated, even a couple of strong signatures, but we didn't get confirmation that anything necessarily touched down on the ground. But for people out of our viewing area that are tuning in, so eastern Emmanuel County and Toombs County, I believe these are two separate warnings right here. Toombs County, your severe thunderstorm warning is still going to go until 4:45. We'll take it up to the Emmanuel County warning, also 4:45, so another 14 or so minutes. And areas over to the east, taking it over into Statesboro to Statesboro over in Bullitt County. Our fair share of scattered hail signatures still within this, below the inch threshold, but maybe upwards to about 1/2 inch in diameter. Still thinking about penny, dime-sized hail roughly. And then down to our south, Ben Hill, Berrien, Irwin, and Tift counties all around the Fitzgerald area. And we'll be tracking eastward over into Coffee County and Douglas, Alma, Hazelhurst, and then over into Baxley. So Jeff Davis County, and then over into Appling County as well throughout the rest of this afternoon. Ansley, you have anything else you want to add?
I was just going to say there are no active warnings here in the central Georgia area. We are officially in the all clear for all of our entire counties, and we are going to get ready for 13 WMAZ News at 5 p.m. I'm in for Ben Jones tonight, so I'm going to sit here and get ready for the show. So we're going to go ahead and drop off the stream, but you can pick right back up with us for coverage, recap of the storms, and your regularly scheduled news and sports coming up here at 5 p.m. But thank you so much for sticking with us through the storms, and we'll be right back to you coming up at 5.